to share this.
Is that you in the yellow jacket there?
evening, everybody. At Divided We Stand. It is Saturday, April the 17th, at around 8:15 in the evening. Great to see everybody.
8:14.
8:14? Well, now it's 8:15. Okay, so
8:14.
pay no attention to that voice behind the screen. Okay,
8:14.
8:14. All right, so first of all, good evening, everybody. This is actually kind of a first for us. Dave and I are not using Restream tonight. Restream is a program that sends everything out to different platforms. And while many people really like it, it's kind of expensive. And for me, it really hasn't been very, very helpful. Dave and I discussed this the last few weeks, and he agreed with me that it was probably best just to let it run out, the subscription. I had it for about a year, and we're going straight through Ecamm tonight. Hopefully that'll do the job, and then I've shared it to Facebook. So if you're on Facebook now, you're actually clicking a link to get you to our show. So it all originated out of YouTube. So we're going to stick with YouTube, and we'd appreciate if you would share this to your Facebook page or whatever. If you think that we're working really hard on this and we're trying to get this thing, going right, and we keep experimenting. And again, this is a first for us because we want to see how this works, just going through one platform, and then we'll share it naturally. So I'm going to, before I introduce our favorite guest,
8:16.
No, 8:16. Okay, he's counting. I think I'd like to begin by going to the internet here. Let me see if this works here. Yeah. In March of 2012, my cousin was killed. He was a shop owner in Philadelphia, and this is 2012 March. He had 2 shots to the back and neck, and that was it. My cousin Joel actually was well armed. He had the latest type of gun. In fact, when he was shot, they found the gun by his side. He didn't have a chance. Basically, he had a shop in North Philly. It was a check cashing outlet. It was very, very successful. It was there for about 20 years or so. And one morning, he came to his shop, put the key in the door. Someone got behind him, and boom, and that was it. But I remember because we had known that this was kind of a dangerous place for many, many years, and we were always worried about Joel. He didn't have any security cameras, and that wasn't really a good thing either. But the gun that he had wasn't going to save him. I mean, again, he had the latest type of pistol, this and that, and he died with it. And of course, today we're going to be discussing, Dave and I are going to be discussing the shooting in Indianapolis and in general, the things that have been going on with the Republican Party and the lack of gun control. So without any further ado, I'd like to present David Price. Dave, it's great seeing you again. I haven't actually talked to you for a while.
No, it's been a while. It's Brian. It's 8:18 if you're interested.
It's 8:18. Well, every 3.5
I'll
minutes, I want you to remind me
I'll keep everybody
of the time.
apprised of the. Listen, I have a question.
Sure.
The film. I take it that was shot. Was that shot by your father? That opened.
My
that?
father, I literally 3 feet from me. I have all of these 8mm and 8mm film rolls, and I finally got this contraption that can record them. It's really cumbersome. It's a real pain in the ass. It only takes 3-inch and 5-inch rolls, and he's got a lot of 12-inch roll. And I've got to. But long story short, I know that these films are going to degrade, and you know how I like this stuff. My father kind of did like an earlier version of what I'm doing now with video.
What year? What year was that, Brian?
That was 1960. Well, there was 2 of them. The first one in California was 1968. It was the beginning of 1968.
That was early for that kind of filming.
He goes back to 61 with this.
Really?
Yeah, 1960. I've got a whole slew of World War II reunion material there. And then you saw one. I started with my mother in Spain.
Right.
I didn't show the rest of it. I actually have it on my own personal channel, and nobody goes to that. It's just my name, and I'm gonna just throw them all up there, just as
That's really
fun,
nice.
because they'll outlive me. And
I think that's fascinating to when you get to a little bit older than Brian, and probably, I don't know if I'm the oldest person involved to the listening audience tonight, but I'm up there, and it's not nostalgia. I mean, it's history. As you know, you and I are both, or you are an educator, and you know, people think of history as famous men and this kind of thing, or women, or, but it's people, and that's a historical document, no question. But the other thing I had was was that wasn't your songs behind it, right? Was that
No, that was actually because I'm thinking of doing that.
no? But I
But
really like I
that
like
comes from Facebook. They have an audio
the free
library,
thing, right? I know,
so
but
I'm throwing that
yeah.
in there. It's not exactly what I want. I'd actually like to use my choice of songs. I mean, obviously there are certain songs that I think would be appropriate, but because of copyright issues, you don't want any
Well,
problems.
if people, people often, or they wonder how come, if I do a talk on Louie, why don't you play Louie? Well, the fact is that a number, Twitter being one, and then of course what Periscope is their part, they have automatic filters that if it's a copyrighted song, they'll just take you down. I
Take
mean,
it
you want
down.
to get your show out. Joey, you're right, except it's 8:20 here, Joey, but we're always 3 minutes ahead in Washington, D.C., or 3 minutes behind. I
And
forget.
the reason it's interesting that you bring this up, and I know we're not going into the topics
Oh,
yet,
well, yeah, we got
but I think
plenty of
it's important. We
time.
got plenty of time here. And it came from this photograph. There's this photograph that I've seen for 50 years I've never met my grandfather uh, on my father's side, and you'll forgive me if I bring this up again. But I had seen this photograph over and over again for 50 years. It's really only one of 2 or 3 photographs I have of my grandfather. I don't know him, and I go down to Seabreeze,
Right.
and I've been looking at this photograph.
Explain to people in case not everybody knows what Seabreeze is, and it's very
Seabreeze is
unusual.
essentially a ghost town. There is some creepy guy that still lives down there, and if you go down to this shore town, which is on the bay, Delaware Bay, uh, it's a town that basically the whole coastline has eroded because of climate change. Delaware Bay in the last 100 years, they say, has risen almost a foot in terms of sea level, and that's been wearing away at the coastlines there, unless you have a seawall. And when you have the big storm is when it really encroaches, or you have a high tide or any type of big storm, and then the seawall they had in Seabreeze, New Jersey, couldn't save the town. And it used to be a town that Dave could tell you more about back in the 1940s and 30s and before. It was quite the thing. But there's only one person left, and he lives a little bit back. And he's kind of a creeper because he's always like watching what people do. I guess he's trying to protect his property. I don't know what he's doing. But anyway, it's a creepy place. But what I'm getting at, Dave, is this photograph that I kept looking at. I kept focusing on my grandfather, and that's really all that's in the photograph. But in the background, you see this little line of trees, and I'm staring at it. I said, "Oh my God! I've been looking at this for 50 years. I didn't realize it until I used the drone that background of trees was Delaware, the very place what I would see when I'm from Seabreeze, looking at. It was like the
Really?
same, right? So I'm thinking,
Wow.
I was using my drone right over the place. It had to be the
Now
same vantage point
that's
as my
not a
grandfather.
nickname for. I mean, that's not a nickname for your sexual organ, right? That's an actual drone
No,
that
no, I
flies.
don't. I
Yeah, I
don't.
just want to make sure.
Okay,
People get confused about that, Brian.
but this photograph, all of a sudden just boom, and it dawned on me that wow, I've been looking at this thing for 50 years without the perspective that I'm thinking about. Like, you don't look at things, and again, when you're mentioning, well, this is a historical document, you never know what
Absolutely.
comes out, the illumination that comes out of these things. And I particularly like the color in 8 millimeter film. There's something that I like with Super 8. It's just it's very deep and vivid with Kodak
Hmm.
and what they do.
Hmm.
And I'm a person who's partially colorblind, so as much as you would think that I don't really think about color that much, when I see the vivid colors, I just love it. And Super 8's gorgeous. The only thing is you don't have the audio with it. I think Kodak for the last 10 years has been trying to put out another Super 8 thing with audio, where it's digital, but it's still
Really,
Super 8.
really. Wow. Yeah.
But the camera,
Yeah.
I think the problem is it's hard to market a camera like that because you don't know if people are going to buy it.
Well,
But
I mean, yeah,
but if you look
absolutely.
at like these things here, I mean, this is an example of, these
Hmm.
were 3-inch reels that were, put together. My father had it, marked off as Spain in 1969. This is when, actually, when there was the lunar landing, and he actually, if you watch the video, my father was taking the film of like the newspaper stand, and it says Luna with the moon. So you see it from a different perspective. And so my father wasn't really thinking maybe that's that important. I don't really know what he was thinking, but it doesn't matter. What he did for now would mean something, because now you have the perspective of what was going on in some street in Spain at the time, uh, about the lunar landing. It was, it was big news. And yeah, it's just fascinating to me. I do like video chronicles, and I know it will outlive me. I know that this very video will outlive both of us in
Hmm.
some form. I don't know what it'll be, whether it's YouTube or whatever. But 300 years from now, when we're speaking to you, because remember, Dave, we're not just speaking to people right now. I mean, I know this sounds really strange, but you appreciate this one.
No, you're absolutely right.
Right now, we're pushing ourselves into the future. So we're actually speaking to people either 300 years from now or 500 years from now, if they're alive or whatever, or maybe somebody from another planet comes and they get this.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you, Brian. Speaking, we don't plan this thing, but it just segues in so well. This week, the Pentagon officially announced that these inexplicable photos are real, and while they're not saying that it's saucers, flying saucers from another planet, it's there. Now, I forget. You were born on Uranus and came here, or how did that work? I remember there's something about no. In all seriousness, no. Back to the pictures.
I'm going to
I
see if
think, but
I can dig some of these
yeah,
up for you. Or
most of us, most all of us have some kind of family thing. One in
One in
mind.
mind.
I'm echoing, Brian.
sorry.
That's okay. I know you're playing with yourself. Um, Now these are what, Brian, that you're showing
As far
there.
as I know, I'm just leafing through these Google pictures of the
Yeah.
Pentagon. These It looks like a blimp.
Who
This
knows?
doesn't mean that it's
No, no, no,
extraterrestrial.
no, no, no. What they're saying, though, let's just says there, confirm. Now, this is interesting. Now, again, a segue in, because we're going to talk a lot tonight about the idea of falsehood and fear and lies and conspiracies. And of course, there's nothing like the UFO. Now, the headline there is not exactly accurate. A couple of them, they will say Pentagon confirms that this UFO. No, what the Pentagon confirms is these are actual pictures, right? They're not saying what it is yet. So,
Yeah, that's good
so
that they don't. You know what I mean?
well, I mean, I don't think they know. I mean, but what they're saying is, but people are jumping. Oh my God, they're here. I told you, 2020, there was no explanation for it. But before we move on, the one other thing I just want to say from a personal standpoint, these pictures, you say they do have a dual meaning. My father, as I think I mentioned on here, I mean, he was a number of things, but he was a professional gambler. And in the 50s, his favorite place to go was Havana, Cuba. And of course, after 1959, he didn't get there anymore. I think the last time he got there was in 58. And you were talking about the color, which made me think of this. It wasn't really sepia, but it was almost like that, or sepia, however they say it. A photo of my father and my mother. My father had sponsored a gambling junket to Havana. And it was my mother and father and five other couples. And they were sitting on the wall, on a wall of outside of Morro Castle. Now, for anyone who doesn't know about Cuba, Morro Castle was like the defense point of Havana Harbor, right? So, they were able from there to take care of any pirates that sailed in. And 2011, I guess, 2011, right? I got a chance to go to Cuba with National Geographic, my wife and I went down there and I had one goal, to go where that picture was taken. And of course, Cuba froze in 1959. And that was there. I mean, I was right at that spot. And that you said, sometimes, I mean, I don't know why that picture fascinated me so much. But the other thing was, as you go there, that's a fascinating place because it is literally frozen almost in time in terms of its look in 1959, because that's when the embargo came, from us. And but what I find interesting, and this gets to American exceptionalism, we'll be talking about that tonight. Cuba does have a couple things that are exceptional. Their literacy rate now is 99% of their people are literate. That's fairly amazing.
It is.
Right? Now, I asked some people when I was down there, I did, a little packing around, because some people, it's just something they stress. And also, their medicine is unbelievably good. Now, that's something that they stress. The other side of Cuba, though, before we make them into gods, when I went, I had a camera. I need the battery. There was not a battery or a camera to be found in Cuba that you could purchase anywhere. So, but the idea of these pictures, like I said, we'll just leave it at that. Said it before, but you never know what you have, and it's kind of ironic, I guess. Tonight, Judy usually goes out with friends and has a trivia game night, but tonight she's here and she's putting together a family scrapbook, which is very much along the lines of what you're doing. And it's she made it for our grandchildren, and they could care less right now. But the older relatives are fascinating, contributing pictures. And of course, in my wife's family, so many of them have done hard prison time. But the idea of it is my family has done prison time, not hers. But, so they're more than just personal memories, Brian. I mean, so I think, I was looking at that. I know you, I know your mother, I know your father. I mean, I know all about that. But I just find that period, that takes you back. We lived it. Which, as you say, Bryce, someday people will look at that who haven't lived it and say, oh, so that's the way it was in 1969. Or, someday they'll say, oh, that's what it was like in the 2020 pandemic. Or that was
and
what
not
it
only
was
that,
like.
again, I don't know if you agree with me with this, Dave, or not. And I'm not asking you to, but because of my philosophical beliefs, and in a way yours, as far as what we can know, that this
Right.
is it as far as what we know, that because our lives are finite, this really is the only true way. And this is everybody watching too, because once you make a comment, you're pushing yourself into the future. This is
Right.
the only realistic way to push yourself in the future, because just like those photographs that my grandfather or your grandfather or your father, they didn't
Right.
know at that time that, hey,
Oh, no.
this photograph,
No.
just like a prize fight in 1910 between like Jim Jeffries and
Yeah, that someday
whatever.
that's going to be.
Someday that's people, fans are going to watch that as the fight of the century. They're going to see these people in the front row, and they're see people walking into the stadium, and they're saying, little did they know that they'd be on YouTube and you'd have millions of people watching it.
It's funny, as people watching the show, or those who are tuning in or catching it for the first time. I live in Crystal City, which is 3 metro stops from Washington, D.C. So I call Washington, D.C. is our city. And for 3 years, I worked with the Museum of News that's now closed. But we were right across the street. Hey, Kim, we were right across the street from, right down the street, actually, not across the street, from the archives. And, I became friendly with a couple of the archive. In fact, the archivist of the United States is a really cool guy, really great first name, named David. So, of course, he has to be great. But
he's the real David.
yeah, he's the real David. So there's Dave Barry. There's a lot of real Davids.
Right.
But the idea was I was telling some, and they were trying, think about this, they were trying to archive every tweet. And they just couldn't do it. So they had to pick up and, kind of pick and choose how they were going to do that, because it was just getting overwhelming in terms of what they have. Library of Congress. People don't realize this. They get 2 books of every book published.
Wow.
Think about that. And, I said, how much do you get a day? She said, sometimes at the Library of Congress, they will get in excess of 12,000 items a day.
Now, this is digitized or?
No, some is digitized, some is not. No, the books aren't digitized. They're hard copies, because you get an ISBN number through Library of Congress, and so that's how it works. And that's a pretty fascinating place. I mean, you're fascinated, with what your films, your father, but
only because I can see what
but
these things.
Oh no, I agree, Brian. No, I agree. But what I'm saying is
this video is going to have more importance than the actual day itself.
Oh, absolutely.
Because people could see this for the next 1,000 years. I'm not saying it's going to be a big thing, but somebody's going to see it.
No, but Brian, that's what I'm saying. Again, I suppose this is a little knock on the way history is taught in America. But it's more than maps and coloring maps and important people and all that. It's just regular people living their lives and working and hanging around the archives and the Library of Congress and knowing what we did at the museum. That's really, what it's all about. I used to tell my students, if you really want to know how writing, actually penmanship, but also the art of writing has changed. Go back and read Civil War letters from
Right.
soldiers.
They're
I mean,
fascinating.
they're not even, but they're written so, because and these are not the kids that were going to college, right? But I guess we can blame my buddy Ernest Hemingway for that. He kind of shortened words, and it's a modern style, and styles change, but you're right. I mean, video, those things will last. So I'm going to speak now to the future. Listen,
And do it. And honestly, that will happen.
oh, I know.
And you'll be in a better situation than, say, Julius Caesar, where you only have, just snippets and
what you had there.
This is real.
Yeah.
They're getting
I know.
the real
so
deal.
here's my message. That while I loved my wife Judy, at this point we've been together 48 years. I have to confess that there was another, and her name was Stormy Daniels. So if you want to go back, she was an actress, a great movie actress. So go back and look at those pictures, kids, and you'll see that older today Dave was kind of right about his fascination. Okay, that's enough for the future.
But let's not forget, whether you like or not, when in general, let's say that there has to be two to tango. So there's not a relationship unless you've got,
well, I don't know. There. I mean, I've been
this is all on one side. Now, if we had Stormy Daniels, I'm not saying she would.
Well, that's the idea. The idea. No, I mean, it's kind of what's the word? Unrequited.
I just wanted to make sure the people
non-reciprocated.
Right, it wasn't reciprocated.
Whatever kind of thing.
Right.
No.
But let's remember. Let's put that caveat here, because those who are watching 100 years from now or 200 years from now, because again, you have to respect that, because it can happen. Because I understand from looking at these photographs that this person here who once lived, David Price, we're talking as though we're dead. We're 6 feet under at this point.
Maybe we are. Some people say we are, and we're living in hell.
Well, eventually we're headed there. But understand that there was no relationship whatsoever.
Contrary.
Well, okay. Because you actually physically were in contact with her. I mean, I understand.
And she was stark naked, except for the 6-inch heels. I mean, I think that meant something. It did to me. I don't know if it did to her.
Well, just understand there was no relationship. But Dave has always been fascinated. It's like that photograph of some actress that somebody's fascinated about, because they sent in for a photograph in the 1930s. That's just kind of Dave. But Dave did see her in person, and that is true. So again, if you're watching,
and now let's close this with this: pictures. There used to be a saying, right? Pictures cannot lie. Do you realize that that's no longer true?
They can be deceiving if you don't look like you say. If you're not looking at it.
Actually, it never was true. Okay, but it was basically the idea that, well, now, and I don't think we'll get there tonight, but we may do a show on it sometimes. One of the scary things, working through people on the dark web, they now can pretty much take any human image and work it onto any type of body, and it would take an expert to determine whether the film was real or fake. Now, think about that.
Right.
I mean, and all the possible ramifications of that. I
don't want to go into this topic because I know that this might throw you off, but that's kind of the thing that's happening already, where these I don't say sex bots, these robots that's getting more. You're going to start seeing human beings having their spouses replaced by robots. You know what I mean? It's just
tomorrow,
you can have and I know which robot you want. Okay.
No, actually, that's not true. I have other robots.
Oh, so Phyllis Diller.
But no, not Phyllis Diller. No, I'm sitting here.
I would get you just to spite you if I were a billionaire. I would get you.
Well, no, you're joking.
Diller.
You're joking, but think about that for a moment, right?
Right.
You do it as a joke, and and somebody's spouse sees it. I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities here, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, great. We'll have to talk about that, Osama. Brian's played for a long time. I played since '66. A friend of mine down here is getting ready to go back out. There's a great club here. If any of you come down, you're always welcome. Just pop by. But it's called the Birchmere, and they're back open. And actually, I will be going to four concerts in June, and they will be the first ones I've been to. So that was it. Last thing on pictures, though, before we clear that out. Um, there, it's good that you're making those available because there are pictures of that intimate 31 seconds Stormy and I shared in the DC cloakroom. But there were pictures taken. But here's something, Brian, you don't frequent those kinds of places. They cannot be released because you're not allowed to release a photo taken in a gentleman's club because of privacy issues. So I thought that was interesting. I tried to get them, but can't. So you'll just have to take my word for it, kids, that I was there, and I am actually a charter member. I have my card of the DC Cloakroom, Washington D.C.'s premier gentlemen's club. So, does anyone here not play? I don't know.
Are they all gentlemen there, or are they kind of like
Well, actually,
people that just down the beers and piss on
I
cars?
will say this, and this ties in again. See, the show is so. What word am I looking for? I don't know. So organic. Everybody just flows in. They're helping us. My years with music has taught me a little bit about sound, right, and what it costs. They pumped $1 million into their sound and light system, into the club, and it's pretty amazing. In that
So I
sense.
assume they really ramp up the bass line, and
Well, I mean, it's just interesting, And again, this ties in. In America,
I don't know that I could put up for more than 15 minutes of that.
No, well, they actually, I've been in restaurants where it's louder, but it's very clear.
Well, that's true too. I mean, you don't like to hear
yeah. I mean, people don't. I mean, people play music know that. It's not. Unfortunately, you walk by and this car has so much bass that it's bumping up and down. But that's not what you want. But the better system you have, it's like using a better microphone or anything else. It's the clarity that you're seeking. But like everything else in America, it is classed. There's the downstairs for the regulars, and then there's the upstairs for the high rollers. And they are two very different worlds, which I always find fascinating. And unfortunately, we'll be talking about that tonight, I assume, on the show.
Said he saw John Anderson at the Birchmere.
Did you really, Osama?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great. I'm trying to think. Like many. I mean, I would say my tastes are more eclectic. I saw Glenn Campbell in one of his last performances. He was there. Randy Newman. I saw there Joan Osborne, who's one of my favorite singers. Anybody knows who? I've seen her a few times. Steve Earle plays there regularly. It's kind of, and the kind of club it is. It opened in '67. But now we'll tie it back in with the pandemic. They didn't know if they could make it, right? And what they're doing right now, and I assume it's everywhere. And veg, obviously, it's not. If everything
Ontario's
is fully locked,
bad. I mean,
yeah,
Toronto,
and this hasn't been, today. News alert now. I went to the Washington Nationals baseball game. A friend of mine had tickets. His partner, who he usually goes with, couldn't go, and he said, "You want to go?" I said, "Absolutely." It was interesting, Brian. They're now up to 25%. So there's it's like 39,000. Fully, I think it's their full capacity. So there couldn't have been more than 10 there. Of course, when you have 10 in a stadium with 39, it's still pretty sparse.
39 is actually kind of small for a stadium.
Well, it's a baseball. It's like the Camden Yards.
It's not as much, right?
No, what they did with baseball after Camden Yards, a lot of them went back to the old time fields, and this is one of those more intimate. But just again, everybody has to make their own decisions about what to do in the pandemic in terms of what they'll do. My thing is fully vaccinated. I wear a mask. I will wear a mask as long as CDC says wear a mask. I have no problem with wearing a mask.
And I've seen so many people who don't just today,
right?
And we know who they are. Why do they always have that same Trumper look?
Well, because they are Trumpers. I mean, let's face it. I shouldn't say that. Okay, I shouldn't say
most
that.
of them.
Obviously.
They do it to piss us off.
Well, I think
do a good job.
Well, what I don't understand. I mean, okay, yes, of course I understand it, but I don't tolerate, and I try to speak out against it whenever I can. I'm working on a project now that will involve some things that will be revealed now. But basically, it's going to come down to the idea of the eternal conflict between the individual and the society. The individual has rights, or should have rights, but so does the society. And what do they do, when they conflict? And this is a classic of the idea of wearing a mask. You have a right not to wear a mask. Do whatever you want. But you have an obligation not to harm others in society.
And they don't give a shit.
And that's basic. Well,
And that's the same thing with the Second
basically, it's a
Amendment.
very much a form of self-centeredness. Now, here's the other side of it, though. We've talked a lot about hypocrisy, and we can all be, hypocrites. I try not to be, but certainly there are times in my life. But Donald Trump is a professional hypocrite. Here's a man who did everything, and he got, we find out that he got vaccinated, right, and wouldn't tell anybody, and then later comes out. And tells him, and what people have told me, I mean, where we live, Brian, it's not about where I live, but we're very fortunate. It's about 92% liberal, seriously. You just don't find many Republicans. And so the masks here have not been a problem at all. But other places don't have that. So, I lived where you lived. And that they certainly have their problems there. But people from that area and other areas have been telling me that have these, they all go, again, let me rephrase that, never and all guys, nobody can use the word all, this never and all. But so many of these who, it's a fake, it's this or that, have already gotten the vaccine. Well, if it's fake, what the hell you get the vaccine for, right? And then you've got those who just stick with it. This is, Bill Gates is implanting a chip, or, this is going to be that. And then they've got some legit, I have a couple of friends, they're just terrified of taking the vaccine. Well, my problem with that is, okay, you'd rather get COVID, have the COVID-19, have its way. And Brian, we don't know. I mean, I'm not a scientist and I don't know, but looking at it, we just have not had enough time to study it. Something I read this week that was kind of frightening. They actually have a name for it, and it's not long-term COVID, but it's something like that. People who just have symptoms that are continuing, whether it's memory loss, we don't know what it does to lungs yet in the long term. I mean, hell, we don't even know. The three major American vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, are all working on a booster already, because we just know now that apparently it'll be for 6 months. But think about it, it hasn't been around that long, right? People haven't been vaccinated. I mean, we don't know how long. We don't know what it'll be. We just don't know. And that leads us into what I want to talk about tonight at some point, this idea of when you don't know, you shouldn't make up stories. And that's really what QAnon and these people are doing. And then definitely with made up stories, one of two parties, and we should have more political parties than two, but that's all we have right now. And maybe at the cost of running an election, that's all we'll ever have, because even if the Republican Party dies, and it may, something will replace it, but it'll just be so much money to run. That party should not capitalize on those fears. And I'd love to get Marcia Taylor Greene on this show and say, hey, Marcia, let me ask you something. You really believe that shit you say, or are you just making it up? Or what is your game? Now, of course, here's my first scary statistic tonight. Do you realize, Brian, in the first quarter of this year, right? So that's January to March, that Marcia Greene independently received $3.2 million in political contributions.
That's it's mind-boggling. I mean, just the lack of logic.
No, I mean, she shouldn't get 3.2 cents, right? But 3.2 million. And of course, the next thing, we won't be talking about so much tonight because we've got to watch it. What she has done, pairing with your personal favorite wrestling coach, Jim Jordan, and the man who you wished you had the hairstyle of, Matt Gaetz, they are now joining forming a group to protect Anglo-Saxon values. I think we have one of those. Isn't that called the Ku Klux Klan?
Yeah, exactly.
What the hell? People representing a political party are going to do this and their own party won't stand up and say anything about it?
Right. No, I mean those. I mean, all bets are off now. Again, this is why we're continuing this because we really are so divided, and we have to be. In
Right.
fact, that's going to lead into the topic about
Yeah.
Indianapolis, which is really
Right. Well, of course.
the same old story. Dave, and I'm kind of starting where I probably would be ending. I think at some point we're going to have to do the Russian kind of thing and just have such a strong Democratic Party government and say you're not having these guns, and we're going to because they're never giving in, Dave. They're just
Well,
it doesn't
okay,
matter who gets shot, when,
no,
how
no,
many.
no.
It doesn't matter.
I said, and I wish, I mean, I'm certainly, not clairvoyant or not even that smart, but I said after Sandy Hook, I really did, Brian, believe that there might be a change. I really did.
Yeah, when you
And I'm
have
not,
people like you see here, I mean, then you
well,
understand that it can't happen.
and they weren't even there then. These were supposedly the better people, right? Now, Lord, not heaven help us, because we're going to beat them. We're going to beat them back. We're going to beat them. We're going to
We're
beat
going
them
to
at their
have to
own.
beat them.
Well, we will. Look, there are certain things. Okay, every day in every way, as I do more research, you find out whether you're reading Howard Zinn, the historian, or whether you're just doing it on your own. I advise doing it on your. America has never been what America claims to be. It never has, Brian. But there are times when at least what should I say, the sham, the appearance was kept up, and we don't even have that now. I mean, when you really are when the members of the 50%, right, 50%, roughly the Republic, there's two parties, so I don't give or take, right, are saying, yeah, I think it's a great idea that we form, an Anglo a group that promotes and protects Anglo-Saxon properties. I think there was another group, but wasn't there a group in Germany at one point that kind of did that too? And we're here and in America. And the gentleman who I went to the ball game with, he lost so many family members in the Holocaust. And we were talking about it, and the idea. I mean, I don't think I'm naive, Brian. You've known me a long time. I don't think I buy into the American swill of this, that, and the other. But I really did think, and again, you're talking about your father, my father, coming from that generation. My father fought in World War II, and it seemed everybody did at that point, right, around you. That I really felt kind of safe in saying we'll never really have Nazis here. Now, interesting enough, in Arlington, which is the county where I live, that was the home of George Lincoln Rockwell. I don't know if you remember him. He was the chairperson of the American Nazi Party in the 60s, and he just got knocked down by the Republicans. He got knocked down by everybody, right? It was just, no, because World War II and the atrocities of the Hitler Nazis were on people's minds. Have we forgotten? What, really? In a way, in a six-sworded sort of way, I can almost understand the Confederacy, not the idea of slavery. What I'm saying is, Southern. We're talking music tonight. We'll talk a little bit more music. I really like some of the music of Charlie Daniels, but as a human being, he was just an ass. Sort of like the Ted Nugent of country, music or
Right.
That kind of thing. And but this idea, the South, he had a great song. The South's going to do it again, and a lot of people. Leonard Skinner was their favorite band. Leonard Skinner used to use a Confederate flag, tying into their Southern roots. Tom Petty actually went to great length to apologize for doing that because he's a Southern boy, and for a while he was using it, and he said, "I just never really thought about it in those terms." But so that's bad enough, and certainly you have to. Again, Brian, we started talking about thinking about others. Can you imagine what seeing that symbol up means to any Black American
Absolutely.
riding by,
Right.
or what a swastika means to any Jewish American, that sees it? These are not, these are powerful symbols, and you can't, you just can't say, oh, yeah, yeah, well, you should get over that. Get over what? You know, get
Yeah,
over
of course,
what?
if
Now,
they had to go through it, that would be
well,
until you put yourself in
Brian,
the shoes, right? That
Brian, that's part of their craziness. They think white people are going through it now. They think they're victims. Look at Trump. He plays that victim card better than anyone, or as well as anyone.
Mhm.
Uh, yeah. How about the devil went down to Georgia? I guess some of you have seen the memes. They're out there now. No, I ain't going there. That's too evil even for me. They're coming out with that now. The idea of Georgia and Texas. I don't know if you saw Texas response to the shootings. They've decided now you don't even need a permit for open carry. Just carry the damn thing. Think about that. Now, again, I want to bring us back because we want to talk a little bit about guns tonight. You were talking about your cousin, right? I'm going to give you a story that's pretty fresh here in DC. I hate as a reporter when I didn't name names, but the names are not important. It's the story. So there was this young man who was an odd young man, somewhat, and he continued to be odd, but this kind of interesting character. And anyway, he enjoyed the company of women who, some might say, not so respectable. So, he'd use these apps and hook up and stuff. So he hooked up, I guess, with this one woman. She came over one night, and then the next night she came over, and they were doing whatever. But she left the door unlocked, and three of her compadres came in to rob the place, right? Now, this gentleman had a gun, actually very well knew how to use it, was not loaded. So while he was loading his gun, they shot him dead. Same kind of thing. You said, your cousin had the latest look.
Yeah,
The idea,
the idea
of guns protecting, the idea of guns protecting anybody is absurd. Okay, Brian, when I ask you these questions, I'm not asking you, I'm asking,
right.
Just out there. When is the last time that you've heard of a good guy with a gun? The only thing that can stop a bad guy is a good guy. When's the last time you've heard that, a good guy that's not in uniform?
It's very rare to have an instance where, people will pick, cherry pick some instance.
Well,
somewhere.
but really,
but no, more often than not, you've got the murders, you get the Terry Kath type of situations happening.
Absolutely,
and those happen all the time. My father, when he was in World War II, he was, of course, he was a sailor, but he was given shore duty one time and shore patrol, and they gave him a gun, no training, and one time he shot it by accident. He says if he had just pointed it slightly the other way, he would have blown his head off.
Well,
that's why he hated those kind of things, because he realized the danger, how quickly you could accidentally do something.
And again, talking about the way we were raised, because that's so much. My father came from Texas, and guns were very important. He had served and he wanted me to learn to fire different types of weapons, and I did. And I just, maybe I was back then they would have called me a pussy or whatever. I just didn't like them. I learned to fire. I learned to be a decent shot, and my father didn't push me on it. He just wanted me to know, and I wouldn't have a gun for what you said. Terry Kath, of course, for anyone who doesn't know, was the guitar player for Chicago Transit Authority when they were good, when they were CTA before they became Chicago. And Terry Kath thought he wasn't loaded or played. There's two stories. One, he was playing Russian roulette. The other was he didn't know.
Well, he didn't kill himself on purpose. We know that.
Well, that appears to be.
Right.
There've been a couple stories recently, again, which are very common. 6-year-old shoots 2-year-old with gun. Another one shot himself. What? Now, what's the statistic now? I think this is right. For every 100,000 people in America, right, there are 120,000 guns. Now, I don't know if you saw this week. I made, which I'm going to continue to do always. I did a comment um, about guns, and one of our own. I mean, I say one of our own, one of our family put in, and it wasn't. I mean, he wasn't. His points were very interesting and very well articulated. I disagree with them, and one was I have a problem with this. The first wordings of the first words of the Second Amendment, the Gun Amendment says a well-regulated militia. So to me, knowing something about the English language, being a language teacher, a college professor of communication, and a writer, there's a couple concepts in there. Regulation and militia are in there. So do we have a militia? No. If we do, it's the National Guard. It's changed. You could look out on those lines. But well-regulated. You show me where today in America guns are well-regulated. Show me. Anyone out there. Right now, this person said
in the military, and even then, you're not even sure.
Well, but fine. I mean, that's what I'm saying. But I mean, with the people,
and that's where it should be.
Now, again, look at the history, folks. Do you know you could have a gun, but you know what you couldn't have? You know what you didn't have in those days? Black powder, and you couldn't fire your gun without powder. That was kept in a central location. Now, part of that was to protect your house from blowing up, right? So the guns weren't, like there. And again, think about this. This just drives me crazy. The guns of 1770s weren't the guns of the 1860s.
Right.
And the guns of the 1860s certainly aren't the guns.
Yeah, I mean, if you would arm the Union Army with modern guns as they are today, that war would have been over with in 2 days.
Right. And even that is
even less than that.
And that is, and again, historians, I doesn't matter whether I agree with them or not, but I happen to, they say that's the first modern horror war. We get the Gatling gun, we get submarines, these things. Now the other one that's big down here, Brian, I don't know how it's playing New Jersey, and anybody else, let me know. It involves guns to a certain extent, but it involves police, and you can't today talk about one without the other, pretty much. The black and Hispanic military guy that was pulled over, and escaped with his life, but certainly the video doesn't portray the police as, shall we say, heroes at all. And you have friends, I'm sure. I have friends now in the black community. The crime is driving while black, walking while black, right? Mm-hmm. Now, when is the last time? I mean, look, when's the last time there's really been a black mass murderer? It's happened, but it's not. So most of our mass murderers are white, angry white men. And the only time they ever seem to get killed is when they kill themselves, right? Look at how many have surrendered peacefully. Well, you're going to tell me that, you got the 13-year-old in Chicago now? I mean, I'm not there, and I'm a firm believer in letting the trial, a person is innocent until proven guilty. Yes, the kid did apparently have a gun. Yes, indeed, he threw the gun away, and this was the position he was in, right? Hands up, surrender position when he was shot. I wasn't there. I don't know the circumstances. But what do they call it? The optics, right? The optics don't look good. And we have at one point, the O.J. Simpson trial was the racial trial of the century. What's going on in Minnesota is, right now, Minneapolis, is to me the racial trial. And I don't see any verdict except that would be justified except one. I didn't see any verdict in the O.J. trial except one. And it wasn't returned, so you never know. But Brian, I'm going to postulate something to you, and again to the viewers out there. As I think about it, I think we have millions, but we have really 4 gun problems that are all coming to one. One would be the one that I mentioned before: crazy, angry white men. Right? They're whether they're shooting their wife or their girlfriend, or they got fired from their job, or they're having a really bad day, whatever. So you have that. Then you have the second group that I think are the inner city, basically, you know, so many black or some Spanish and some white too, but for the most part, so you have inner city of the cheapness of life. You have that. Then you have the military kind of thing, not the military, but police shooting. You know, they have guns, but they seem to. I mean, I'm sorry. You know, I know mistakes are made, but you can't mistake a taser for a gun. You can't.
Or you
can't
shouldn't. You shouldn't.
well, you can't. I'm sorry, you can't. What if she? What if she need? Okay, she or he. In this case, it was a she. What if you need to pull your gun? You're going to pull your damn taser? Very well, what she was pulling. Come on. And I know
Which
that.
it really is bothersome because if she is, let's assume that she's lying. That means she's lying to save her ass, and that's really
Well, wouldn't you?
bad too. Well, you would think that at some point you'd admit, like,
No, no, Brian. See, I don't know. And the last group, which I find the most heinous of all, the crazies are usually just that, crazies. Poverty and ignorance make you do crazy things.
right. That's true. And
But
yeah.
the two groups that I blame the most are authority figures misusing their power, and that would be the police. And then the one group that I blame for all of this comes back to our friends in the Republican Party, and they're Democrats too. But basically, the Republican Party, who was beholden to the NRA, that was funded by Russia, and the NRA chiefs, who spent millions and millions on themselves. And I still, if somebody could please let me know what really was the power of the NRA. Really, what was it? I mean, there aren't that many registered members, right? To really be that. What the hell was the power? You could get money from other places, right? I just don't get that unless I've misread Republicans and they've just been bad dudes and dudesses for a long, long, long time.
Rare Medium has a good point here. He says, he said there's a problem with the design. They're making these tasers too close. Even if, let's suppose he said,
yes, and I was gonna, Rare. I'm certainly negligent in my comment. I've read that, and I believe it's true. And well, I know it's true. And they add, but the reasoning is definitely, as you point out, is fallacious on that. Somewhere I read that they want them to be like the gun so that the criminal, the assailant, isn't sure which it is.
Well, he found out.
Well, I mean, you try, and Rare Medium's absolutely 100% right. You try to avoid mistakes, not make them, right? I mean, that's the idea.
Do it before it happens.
I mean, yeah. So now, if we were in a country that cared, would act or would have the courage.
Well, the country does care. The majority of people do, and that's the problem.
They could get people in office who care, then, right? They would do, that would be at least something you could do. A taser has to be yellow and lighter than a gun, right? Makes sense? Unless you're an idiot, you can't confuse them. This week, Brian, too, very moving. I haven't posted pictures yet, but it was just there for a very short time. Gabby Giffords, of course, who was, the congresswoman who was shot, and a number of anti-gun groups. What they did is they took white flowers and put them in the National Mall leading up to the Capitol, right? And let's see, what it was, representing the number of victims killed. So it was one, like one flower for every 10,000 or something like that, victims that were killed. And, that field went on. You just looked at it, I sat, you think there, and really, now, what other country has this problem? None. I'll answer my own question. Now, they have other problems, right? I mean, certainly.
Again, we have a big look. We know what the problem is. We do know what the problem is, and now how are we going to deal with them? It's the same thing with Trump.
Well, there we are.
They're saying no collusion, and there's Paul Manafort and Kalimnik. I mean,
I know.
It's kind of
Well,
obvious what's going on here.
well, okay. So let's tackle that, Brian. You and I
I mean,
will
I'm not trying to
talk
get to
through.
another subject, but I'm trying to
No, well,
connect
that's
this
all part and
idea
parcel of it.
that we know
Okay.
exactly what the
Let
problem
me ask
is.
you something. Okay, are you familiar with the concept of the purge? The movie's The Purge. Does that mean anything to you?
No, I'm not from the film. No, I know what a
No.
purge
There,
is.
there's a series, um, and basically what it is, it was it's a science fictiony type thing, and they realized that people need violence. So one night a year you can do anything you want with impunity, but the other 364 you have to live, regulation. So let's suppose that we decide to use that type of thing approach. Could you kill a Republican
I wouldn't do
just
it.
just for
No,
just for
look,
being a Republican?
look. I have thoughts in my head like I wish they would all disappear, which is not
I
the
not no not
no.
some hypothetical.
No, I
If
couldn't. I don't like doing things like that unless I'm there to protect myself at that moment or
I'm not
person.
now. See, this is where it gets interesting, Brian, in the philosophical and the theoretical. I would say the exact same thing, right? Um, Now, if someone were to break in now and threaten my wife or myself, I believe that if I had the ability, I would take them out and not feel that guilty about doing it if I was convinced that. So yes, so I'm saying for a threat, I believe I could kill someone. Now, now the question becomes, I do feel that Republicans are a threat to everyone's safety, but I don't think it's a direct enough threat to
Mm-hmm.
warrant the killing, right? Okay, so we can't kill him. So what do you? So let's look now. How are we gonna? Well, okay. Um, let's see. Uh, I'm kind of lost for an idea. Right? Okay. Uh, are we gonna have a civil war? I don't think so. Do we have the makings of one? Yes, but it's not. It's not 1865. You can't draw a line and say this is one side, this is the other, because basically the division is urban, rural, right? Coast, inland, um, but even that's not pure because it's educated versus ignorant. Um, it's religious. I mean, so they're intermingled. I don't see that happening. Um, Now, you could a theory that's out there, which I find interesting, is to do it in such a way to reflect is you have to get a different, what you say, a different demographic of where people live. So there's what I think there's last count there were 4 liberals in Idaho, something like that, right? So you need to get enough people out there to do that. Now, how do you do? I don't know how
Right,
you do
especially
that.
when you know that a lot of the conservatives purposely go out to Idaho and
Well,
the
that's where they're
posse
going,
comitatus types. I
and
mean, they've always
and,
been
and
there. You don't just go to
yeah,
those
well, that
neighborhoods.
no, and to be honest with you, I mean, I think Montana, Idaho,
North
beautiful states to
Dakota.
visit, beautiful states to visit. I ain't living there, unless and that kind of thing. Um, and I don't see that getting any better, right? Um,
They're essentially territories, and they're just
well, and then again, nothing new, Brian. The compromises that were made to form this country were basically, states against other states. Have we ever really truly been a United States?
that's a good
Um,
point there, Veg.
that's a great veg. I mean,
That you would
that
think
could
all
be.
police would do is say, look, this one stays in there because they had to have known that if they're similar, this is
And
in
I'm
your
not saying,
left, this is
look,
in your right.
in all fairness, look to the police officer. Mistakes can be made. Okay. And again, we don't know, right? We don't know. We weren't there. You're not in the mindset. However, some jobs, Brian, this is my belief, and I don't know that anyone could sway me from this. Most of my beliefs are not this chiseled. There are certain jobs where mistakes can't, you don't want the pilot to pretty much be able to fly the plane most of the time,
Or
right?
Chernobyl. You don't want Chernobyl. You got to
Yeah.
be
Or,
right.
right. Or our profession, or was my profession, teaching. We're humans, but you got to be. You're messing with people's lives, right? You've got to, if you're going to take those jobs. Now, some people are saying, Brian. So again, anybody out there, please comment. I've been reading a lot about more training for police. Do you think that would help?
Training's good. I mean, there's nothing wrong with training. I mean, you should have training. I mean, I don't want anybody untrained.
All right. Let me ask you a question. I'm gonna not play doubt. I'm gonna go a little bit. Have you had training as a teacher?
Absolutely.
Has it really changed your mindset that much? I mean, in other words, if you didn't believe in the Socratic method,
Well, I mean, I think to a certain extent, there's certain things that I do get from it in the sense that I know what not to do and what's
right?
current. But no, I get what you're getting at, but
And would it really change the essence of your being? So now we got to look at who becomes a police officer. Do pacifists become police officers?
very few.
Don't know any. All right. Do liberals become police officers?
Yes, some do.
I would say so. But would your tendency be more conservative people to become police officers
Yes, and that
because of
shows
the
up with
relationship
most police
because of the
officers are
relationship with
Trumpers.
authority?
Right.
Now, the other thing is, if you're going to be a police officer, what's the one thing you know? You're going to carry a gun, right? You're going to carry a gun. And if you carry a gun, there's a chance you're going to use the gun,
In your lifetime.
right? And you're in a business where people can and will try to kill you.
The minute you have a gun, it means
But I mean, so you've got all this. Now, I don't know. I hear all this. Uh, uh, you know, we should respect authority. Bullshit. Bullshit. We should respect authority when it's right and tear the shit down when it's wrong. Right. And I think that's another difference between liberal philosophy and conservative philosophy. Conservative philosophy, believes a lot that in authority and respect. I'm not going to argue with anybody over this, but I don't give a shit about the American flag. It doesn't mean anything. It's a piece of cloth. It represents now what I.
What you saying there, boy? You
Yeah,
going
no.
against the
But
that American flag gonna have to take you out, boy.
Yeah, but I mean, what I find interesting is
all of Texas.
I'll worry about how I treat people, not how I treat a piece of cloth, right? And I'm not gonna defecate on it. Not today, anyway. If I was, I would be making a point about it. But this idea, if we look at this stuff, oh, you've got to respect the president. How many times did I hear that from 2016 to 2020? No, you don't have to respect the president if he or she doesn't deserve it. No. And again, so you've got a party pro-gun, anti-minority.
Did you see the photograph, folks? I'm familiar with Bob Evans, who's a friend of ours.
Oh yeah.
Bob posted on Facebook today a photo from Salem County, which is in New Jersey, folks. And
someone
had a sign that said "fuck Kamala Harris" and the bitch that she wrote in on Joe Biden. This just goes to show you. And I've said this. I can't tell our audience from Alabama and Arkansas and Mississippi. What's wrong with your state when
it's our
5
state.
miles from here I've got the same crap. It doesn't.
What's interesting, and that's been one of my other passions is free speech. Well, people realize that there is no such thing as free speech. There is no such thing as the idea of non-restrictive free speech. In fact, the Supreme Court has found that you may not issue fighting words, right?
Well, in certain countries considered blasphemy or apostasy.
But all these ideas, and then we get to the cancel culture, which we can deal with later. But this idea, so let's get back because that's are they fighting words on that barn? Well, they're not nice words. They're also grammatically stupid, as Mr. Evans, songwriter and poet extraordinaire and English teacher.
He prefers RG. I say Bob because I'm used to saying.
No, that's Bob is. Bob is his Bob personality when he does the restaurants, and he's RG when he does the other. No, very talented, by the way. If anybody gets a chance to hear his songs or look at his poetry, but he said, which is true, the way that's set up, it's Joe Biden.
I'll try to dig that up, by the way.
Yeah, Joe Biden did that quote because that's where you put the person who spoke. So, I mean, my God, on a sort of a born, and certainly, where was I? Oh, I know. In your neck of the woods, my former neck of the woods, but in a part I hadn't been to in very rural Gloucester County. So on this back road,
There
we
you
were
go.
there. It is. There it is. Yep.
This is right in South Jersey, ladies and gentlemen. This is
Yep. Not
Southern
and
New Jersey. This is not Alabama.
nope.
There you go. This is what I am dealing
Now,
with.
let's look at that. Do you think maybe we're misreading it? Maybe
Put it
this
in red,
person
too,
wants
you know.
no. Maybe this person wants to have sex with Kamala, but still she's married. Who's the bitch she wrote in on?
This is a business owner, he said, too.
I know. And notice where Joe Biden. Now, is that, and the bitch she wrote in on Joe Biden. Well, look, I hate to say this, gentlemen, and I may come visit him.
That's a dangerous. That's the kind of person you've got to watch.
Well, here's the thing:
because he's willing to put this huge billboard out there on a business in an area that's a Democratic state.
I'm not trying to say we shouldn't. I agree. What are you going to do with him?
You watch him. That's for goddamn sure. A lot better than this.
All right, but does he have the right to?
The question is,
does he have? And I'm not taking a side on this. Does he have the right to put that up? Now, what you would have to argue is they are fighting words, and that's very difficult.
He has the right to put it up, but like I said, he's the kind of guy.
Okay. What recourse do we have as citizens if we disagree very vehemently with what he says? We could all go.
I'm not. This has nothing to do with the first man. I understand he can do what he wants. All I'm coming about is from the danger, because of the reality of that. These type of people,
I don't
when
know
they go that far.
I don't know that he does have. I think he has the right to say that, but people seem to think that their rights supersede others. I think that there's a right for 20,000, 10,000, 5 people to go to his property and sit down and say, take that sign down.
I wouldn't doubt it, by the way, Dave, you're familiar with it. And I'm sorry, folks, if you're not familiar with this local area, but on 77, Dave, which is the route where we live, there's a farm there. And this guy used to have his farm, materials all out, every day. And he had this huge banner that says Trump 2020, no more bullshit. I mean, the thing was literally as big as my house. Yeah. Okay.
Well, see, that's.
I'm not even sure it's not the guy. I doubted it.
Well,
but there are people like that.
There's certainly a difference between Trump 2020, Trump forever, Trump is God, and what's up there. I mean,
right. But when you have 2020 stop the bullshit, and then it's as big as a house, it starts approaching this idea where, again, you just have to watch these people, because these people, it's not good enough for them just to have a sign. They've got to have a huge sign. They're in your face.
Okay. Watch them for what? What are you going to do?
I'll tell you what. Here's why. Because
I'm not saying you shouldn't watch them. What do you do?
You don't get. Look, they want the attention. They want you to be angry. And if they don't get the fix, if they don't get off on that, then they're going to keep taking it to a higher level. Because at first it is this moment. Okay.
I agree.
Again, I'm saying you cannot do anything about this shit. You can't tell the person to take it down. It's his house. He can do what he wants. But I'm saying that's the kind of person that you really need to say, okay, we're going to take a note of there's nothing wrong with taking a note about what this guy does.
Right, but you got to convey that to him. How are you going to convey it to him?
Oh, I'm not ready to convey anything to him, other than I'm not even actually not going to convey anything to him.
Why? So then he'll just continue.
Because he, first of all, he wants the attention. I'm going to let him.
Oh, I au contraire, my friend. I think that's the old way.
But I'll tell you what, I'm gonna sleep with one eye open wide with this kind of nonsense.
All right, fine, Brian. I'm not saying, but what I'm saying is, you have to. You can't kill him, but how do you let him know that what he's doing, while he may have the right to do it,
he doesn't care.
Is wrong.
He doesn't care, and I don't care that he doesn't care.
There you are, Veg. There you are. I was trying to get Brian to say that. Veg came through. Now the problem is, I don't know the person we're talking about, but his business might be looks like something to do with farming, maybe tractors, right? Trucks. So probably his customers agree with it, right?
Bro, all right.
Again,
because they're farmers, and a lot of farmers are like that.
Look, I'm not going to say, I'm not going to go and say, but certainly the Southern attitude, there is now all over the country because we move all over. But one of the things historically for the area that Brian lives in, the area where I grew up and lived there for 59 and a half years, it was a glass manufacturing capital of the world. at one point, but they couldn't find enough workers because they would not hire anyone of any color, so no black. The Puerto Ricans then could only work in the fields, et cetera, et cetera. So they went down to the coal mines country, and they were on strike, and so they recruited West Virginia. They recruited Kentucky and Tennessee. That's why, Brian, if you, especially in the suburbs, if there is such a thing as a suburbs for the town of Birchmere, 20,000, many families with West Virginia, Tennessee roots. Now, that does not mean everyone from West Virginia or everyone from Tennessee or everyone from Kentucky is, a racist or along those lines. But it's certainly a number of them were raised that way and brought those beliefs to South Jersey. The Klan has been active in Cumberland County forever. Brian, I don't know if you're aware of this. A friend of mine's doing research. You live on Sunset Lake, correct?
Correct.
And I lived there too. Once there was an amusement park there. It predates both of us. I don't even remember it. But anyway, that park and the lake were owned by and were going to be used by the KKK for a meeting site. Shiloh Borough, as I pointed out before, you go past there on your way to Salem, right? Mm-hmm. You go through Shiloh, that really run down gray building. That was Richardson's store. That was the first place where David Duke of the KKK spoke north of the Mason-Dixon line. But here's the thing. You can trace that there. But you know what? You're right, Brian. It's happening all over the country. It's not just
and they're getting angrier because they see that we're not giving in to them now, right? I mean, Biden is saying, Biden's moving to the left.
Well, he has to.
He has to because it's the only place to go.
I don't even, left. I mean, let's put it like this. Biden is doing things that the country apparently wants him to do, right? He's got some 76%, 71%, 80% ratings. Now it's early in his presidency, and that'll fall. I don't know if you read today, Brian, or saw today. Interesting Republican strategy, good political strategy. Now that President Biden named Vice President Harris as kind of the, heading up the border idea, which nobody really knows what to do with. Now they're calling her the failed border czar. The words are so interesting. They're so charged. Like, walk down the town of Bridgeton, hold up a sign. I love socialism, and see where it gets you. I'll tell you what, I love socialism more than I love fascism. I love socialism a hell of a lot more some days than I love capitalism. It depends, but we take these words. And the other side, one of the worst things, if I could go back and change something, whoever, and they are saying, watch our show, whoever decided to defund the police made sense and would win friends and influence people. No, reform the police. You don't want to defund them. What you want to do is get more money to have domestic disputes, maybe, have a counselor, those kinds of things. But we choose these words, and then they take on a life of their own. And then they get people riled up. And I still don't get what white America, or those of white America who are angry, what are they angry about? What really are they angry about? What, the war on Christmas that doesn't exist? Wait a minute. Kim, this is more important. Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, buns for burgers. I'm sorry. Get the hell, don't run now. You got to get them. I'm not being facetious.
We'll still be on when you get back.
No, food comes before anything. In fact, if I get hungry, I'm going to go out and eat. Let Brian do the damn show himself. Dave, Brian, let's get back to this. Right. We're talking about guns. We're talking about the Republican Party. We're talking about all this stuff. All right? Now, some people believe that same back to you, Kim, certainly love and peace are wonderful words. I shouldn't say a lot. People believe that when Donald Trump rode off into the sunset, things would get better. Now, there is a mental mindset, and Joe Biden is doing a much better job. I understand that. But the problems are still here. and we haven't even dealt with it, and we don't know what the conservative judiciary is going to do in the next 20 or 30 years. But everybody's just all of a sudden everybody's saying, well, I don't know, do you that's the way it's always been, or do people understand that you don't do things because that's the way it's always been? And do they understand? You were saying before, Brian, which I think again, we don't we don't plan this show, but you were talking about this stuff we're doing going into the future. Well, you and I can't imagine what that future is like, and neither could the founding fathers. I don't care if they were most brilliant.
But they did kind of understand what we were talking about in the intro to the show, is that they knew that what they were doing was going to affect the future.
Well, yeah. Oh no, from that end. But I mean,
they knew that they were very intelligent in that sense.
Well, okay, maybe not. You got to remember, it was a time when rational thinking was coming in. All right. First of all, they weren't God people. The majority were deists.
Right.
Okay.
They were not God from anybody that would don't like that.
I will, and look it up. Thomas Jefferson wrote his own Bible. Okay. He grabbed the parts that made sense.
He loved Jesus. Who are you saying, boy?
Yeah, well, whatever. All right. Secondly, they were flawed, as we all are. They were flawed. All humans are flawed. That's number one. But two, we're all flawed by the context in which we live. Slavery was acceptable. All right. Is slavery acceptable today? No. Should it have been acceptable then? No.
Wage slavery is acceptable today. Wage slavery is.
Didn't say that. I'm talking, of course, it goes by the names, but I'm talking about the idea of concept.
Absolutely not. Right. It's not acceptable.
No. And
it's not acceptable anytime.
So when something changed, muskets versus, almost unlimited bulleted repeating weapons, what worked then? I keep pointing to people and saying, look, would you go back and ask to be treated for the pandemic the way that you would have been treated had the pandemic come out in 1776? You know what they would have done? Probably, because they did for everybody. Leeches or bloodletting.
Right.
That was it, right? Or praying over you. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, that was a big thing.
But not as big as they think, right?
Right.
Because these people, but look, in the Pledge of Allegiance, that came in almost 150 years after the founding. And you know why that came in? That was in the time of the Red Scare,
right? Because they want everybody to,
and they said, if you won't say that, maybe. Yeah, and that was one way to do it. Under God, well, communist is godless.
Teachers had it in the 1950s. They had to sign a document saying that they wouldn't have anything to do with communism or whatever.
Yeah, and and there's another Osama, of course. But what I'm saying is, in the mindset of America, slavery would not be accepted. It was just I guess what I'm trying to say, and maybe I'm not doing a very good job of articulating it. There are certain things in times it's just the way it is, right? It's just the way it is, and I think that was a belief, except for a few abolitionists who grew and grew and grew, and but that idea was slavery. It's been here, and look, you can use the Bible to justify slavery, right?
Right.
Jesus
even said it once that you obey your master.
Well, yeah, and what is that? And of course,
it's anyway. Just not, the whole comment itself is kind of fucked up.
Well,
like the comment, and and men always mention this. It's the idea that even Jesus said something to the effect that the poor will be with us always. I mean, if you just think about that comment, that is such a give up. Here you are, the champion. The poor, and you're saying the poor will be with us always.
Now I'm going to play devil's advocate on the other side. A good conservative, there were such a thing, kids, a long, long time ago. He was a guidance counselor at Richmond High School. I don't know if he was there when you got there, Brian. He was also a mayor of Richmond for a while, but man, he was conservative. His name was E. Bud Maxwell, right? And now this point is true. I was
going to say E. Bud Dwyer.
No, E. Bud Maxwell. Bud Maxwell. And Bud said, And he and I had some really interesting, spirited discussions, not like we do today. I mean, because, for my liberal end, but, I think we respected one another enough to do that. And Bud said, and it's hard to argue, he said, Dave, take the 5 richest men. Now, he wasn't saying that'd be sexist. Unfortunately, that's another imbalance. But, and you put them in a room and somebody's going to be the poorest of them. And that's true, right? So, I mean, if you want to say Jesus meant somebody's going to be poor all the time, but that you could accept, right? But to accept the poor as a concept, the poor as...
Well, you can say that. I'm just saying there's so much
38
hypocrisy
or 30, 38,
in
38
every
or 41
religious document that,
No,
you just got to say, just like you said, Dave,
Right.
You take something 200 years ago and they're still believing
It's
in
the
these
same.
things.
It's the same.
You can't give Jesus an out. You can't give God an out.
No one gets an out.
Okay?
No one gets
because
an out.
what they
I
said was
agree.
always wrong. It was just... they get
Well,
it right every once in a
again,
while.
I'm not trying to mince words.
It's like the Republicans.
I'm saying
they might get it right twice.
Even if it wasn't wrong for their time, it's wrong for today, right? I mean, there's
Right.
times now. The human condition doesn't change necessarily. The human essence, whatever that is, born fucked up, die fucked up. But what does change is the conditions around us. In other words, we have no idea, Brian. Now. Let's look at that. Let me go this way. Do you think that the attack on the Capitol was an attack? Could that have happened without social media, television, radio?
It would not like that. No,
because you could, you'd send it out. Hey, St. Louis, come here, and 6 months later they show up. Now Bob Rose will have to get a real job. Bud Maxwell, he was right. Bob did need a real job.
It must be an inside one because I don't.
No. Bob was a Democratic. What should I say? Bob was the Democratic do-it-all. And so the Republicans would say, "Oh, they're just paying him to do nothing." Well, he didn't. Bob did a lot of things. In fact, shout out to Bob. He doesn't listen to us, but he's there. He just. He was in the hospital and he found out the good news. It wasn't the bad news that he thought it was. So
that's good.
Aging. But this idea, Brian, of, and I don't have an answer for it, of looking back and using old stuff when the world is changing. Okay. I mean, I'm wondering, I've always been, and this is personal to me, I've always been a free speech absolutist, right? I think it works, or it did work. I'm not so sure anymore. Like, you get to this, let's get to that. Let's get back to that sign. The R.G. Evans discovered, yes, right. Is that a good thing? It certainly doesn't take into effect the impact it has on others. I mean, and that brings us back to the idea of whose rights supersede whose. Does the individual have more right than the society, or does the society have more right than the individual? And whose society? Who censors the censors? I mean, it's something I'm working on. Yeah. So the problem becomes, I think one of the problems right now, Brian, and again, it's really that the Republican Party, as it's constructed today, does not speak for the majority of Americans.
Correct.
Would you agree?
Correct.
Right. It does not even necessarily speak for more than 80% of its own party.
They're reactionary. They're not even really reactionaries. They're just in that, they're just like stupid people. It wouldn't matter if it's now or 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. They're the type of people. It wouldn't matter what year you were born, whether it's year one or now. It's just some really faulty thinking. It just goes to show you. Rousseau talked about the veneer society. Part of it's just the veneer of the human being, that we are that close to other animals. I mean, there's some of us who have, are carrying the train cars. They're intelligent people. The intelligence that was built into all these fascinating things that we have. But the majority of people, we're no different than a bear. They're just that. They're holding the device. But they don't know what's going on in it.
Well, the other thing is that I think, and this is my take, and I think the word conservative, it certainly envelops this idea. Most conservatives, if you were to talk to them, want to go back to a better America. right? Make
Well,
America great again.
yeah, well,
So
it's
who
like
the
me
hell was
saying
it?
right and left, and you're looking at it from a different angle. What they
Well,
like,
what? Yeah.
what they like is what's going to kill us.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Make my challenge to them was always when someone would do that. Okay, tell me exactly when America was great. Please tell me. And here's what I want: great for everyone, because that's what America. The
I
ideal
would say
said
maybe between 1941 and 45, and then that's
for
about it.
for gay men, for
No,
women.
no, that's
That's what I'm
definitely
saying. I mean, you can't go
can't.
there. You can say it was great for white Anglo. Oh,
Right.
maybe that's why we're having this Anglo-Saxon Protestant revival group, which I'm going to call. You can't call them neo Nazis. I'll just call them. I don't know. Fix some
Crypto
name.
Nazis is his
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But this idea of going,
Corbett
A,
said.
you can't go back and B, why would you go? You can't. I mean, you know, it's like the old person who says, gee, I want to be 17. Well, you can want it all day.
It ain't happening.
You and Veg, you're absolutely right. I think there's part of that, but I think it goes beyond that. I think they really do want that idea that they don't think of anyone else, meaning any other group or any other thing. I find it fascinating, and maybe that's not the word, but I will, how a woman becomes, subservient to her, conservative thinking husband, right? And I know and I'm looking like, I mean, I could just imagine, yeah, Judy would follow anything I said, politically. That ain't happening, you know. And that I think so. I think they want to go back to that. I think the big thing, Brian, and I don't know how to adjust this. They're acting out of fear. I mean, that's what it is. It's pure fear, fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of the browning of America, fear, the things they say are already here, the war on Christianity, the war on Christmas. Ain't no war on either one. Okay. Why can't we have Kwanzaa and,
Right, but
Christmas?
here, Dave. From my perspective, I get that. I mean, there is not this and there is not that. And we all know that. There's a lot of things that there isn't what people think there is. We know that. The problem is they actually believe it to be true, and it's that perception, and we all know that. And it doesn't matter if it isn't true or it is. They are just an absolute threat to your life and to my life
Well,
because of the way they think. And this is where, again, it gets back to this idea, is that at some point, Biden, I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but it's just like these crazies, January 6th, but for a good way, we're going to have to take control and say,
but the problem is that the founding fathers and those came after put in some barriers to that.
they certainly did.
The Electoral College.
And it certainly has worked out for the other side, hasn't it?
Well, again, I don't
They
think they had
manipulated it.
see, if you really study it, they naively thought they didn't want, they didn't see the quickness in which political parties were forming. The only person who rose above any was George Washington, right? And I'm not saying he should, but I mean, he could have been king. He could have been, he could have said, I want to serve 78 terms if he'd lived that long. He was that popular, but his popularity was starting to wane a little bit. And so, and he was being attacked in the newspapers at that point. And, I could just see him, I'm about it's like a half hour away from, his estate in Mount Vernon. I could just see him sitting there with Martha one night. He didn't curse, but man, Martha, I've given everything this country. They just don't appreciate me. Look what they wrote today. I just had it. I want to go back and be what whatever I was. Here's something I want to read to you, Brian. Time magazine this week brought it out, and it kind of gets to my, QAnon and what we're talking about tonight. So this study was about the elected officials have promoted elements of outlandish internet conspiracy theories that views former President Donald Trump as a messianic figure, battling a cadre of deep state operatives, Democratic politicians, and Hollywood celebrities who molest and murder children. It's a
There
symptom
you
of how
go.
widely the QAnon delusion has spread in the United States. Now, I happen to know this organization. They are, on the scale, they are extremely conservative, but it's American Enterprise Institute. The best way I could describe them is they are the George Bush, Donald Rumsfeld, John Boehner conservatives. But here's the study they did. Time reports it this way, or the writer for Time reports it this way. It's a symptom of how widely the QAnon delusion has spread in the U.S. In December, an NPR Ipsos poll estimated that 1 in 3 Americans, 1 in 3, believed in some of the key tenets of the extremist ideology. Another survey by the conservative American Enterprise Institute found that 29%, again, you're very close to that 1 in 3, of Republicans agreed that Trump, quote, has been secretly fighting a group of child sex traffickers that include prominent Democrats and Hollywood elites. Now, you've got your two favorite women in America, Lauren Boebert and Marjorie Taylor Greene, are part of that. You've got Matt Gaetz, you've got Jim Jordan, you've got Bobo 1 from Alabama there, Mo Brooks, and Bobo 2, the new senator, Tubby Tuberville, I was a coach at Auburn.
Oh my God.
That list goes on and on and on. Now, what the Republicans, Brian, too, have done so effectively, they maybe with the foresight of realizing or what they want to do, they really start at the grassroots level. You know what I mean? Look at how many councils, city councils or township commissions are controlled by Republicans. Work it up to state legislators, work it up to governors. What was it last time? 39 states, I think, had Republican governors.
And it should be around 18 in reality.
Well, maybe even less. I mean, depending. But now, certainly, I'm not going to say that there aren't hypocrites. Whether you call yourself a Democrat or choose to do what I do, call yourself a liberal, and vote for anybody who's liberal, who's always a Democratic candidate, seems to be more liberal. You take, and I know with politicians, it's a game. It used to be a game, and you'd attack and you wouldn't go, but we're now so vicious, right? Like, I'm sorry, if I were running against Donald Trump and he said things about my wife or that my father killed John F. Kennedy, I don't know if I'd kiss his ass. Sorry, I really don't think I would. Ted, you listening to me? And yes, I know you and your wife fell on the knees and God told her that you're supposed to be president. I'm not sure that. I mean, maybe you believe that. Josh Hawley. And the thing, Brian, that is absolutely terrifying, maybe more so. And I don't know, I don't know Marcia Taylor Greene or background. Yeah, I'm Marjorie. I said Marcia. I'm sorry. But I do know
thinking of Marcia from Brady Bunch, actually.
Yeah, Marcia. I've never found her attractive. She's no Stormy Daniels. I know Stormy Daniels. Okay. The idea. Look, if you concede, and some people wouldn't, but I think there might be some, that you have to have some modicum or above modicum of intelligence to get into Stanford and Yale and schools of that, unless your dad bought your way in, like Donald Trump's dad bought his way into the Wharton School at Pennsylvania. Cruz is a graduate. Hawley, some of his professors have said they worried about him, but he was the brightest kid in class. Do they really believe this shit, or are they just riding it? And which is worse? Which is worse?
By the way, Dave, because you've always warned me about my naivete, about people with degrees, and you look at, and we've talked about this before. When you talk about intelligence, you have people who have engineering degrees and doctorate degrees, but then you get into education and you get into law school, and there's a very almost like theatrical, dramatic, foundation behind those, and you really can't. You could call that intelligence, but
I'm not. I'm just saying.
Social intelligence, not a real.
I'm just saying you're probably not going to get D's in academics and get into law school, right? It's just Probably not going to
Not a
happen
good law school, right? Unless
on
you
any
find
law
yourself in
school.
like a Trump or getting
Well,
into
that's what I
war.
said. Let's see. The economy was much stronger back then. I'm reaching veds. Doesn't the outsourcing manufacturing have a lot? Oh, absolutely. Look, uh, uh, I mentioned it on last show. I don't know if anybody caught it. I'm just reading a chapter a night because I'm doing so much other research. But this book, Evil Geniuses, that's exactly, it's predicated on two things: the Republicans having a plan, and then circumstances falling in their plan. But part of that is what they created. All right. So um, when you have a society that values money as much as we do, right? Um, Money becomes the end all and be all. And look, let's be honest. You can manufacture a product in China with their modern version of slave labor a lot cheaper than you can manufacture something in America, right? And if your only motive is to make profit for yourself and your investors and your board of directors, well, then you're going to outsource. Um, there's some things, that maybe now we're learning if we want to protect ourselves, shouldn't be outsourced. Components that we need for health, like the ventilators at one point.
Right.
The tubing, not a piece of it manufactured in the United States. The joke was made in China, made in China. Well, of course, all of Trump's USA shit is made in China too. But anyway, the idea of this is, so there are jobs. And then you get into this idea, which we talked about on the last show, and we'll probably talk about forever, the $15, a minimum wage. I'm sorry, that's not enough. So are we going to have to look at some type of guaranteed income at some point? And then where does that money come from? And hell, we can't even get the $15 raise now for people. Okay, today I'm screaming laughingly about paying $5.50 for a soda at the ballpark. Well, do you really think those people are making $15 that gave me that soda? No, they're not. So if they do that, the distributor who provides the soda is going to jack. Suddenly we're going to pay $25 for it in the ballpark.
Right.
I mean, they have you,
Right.
But the thing goes on and on and on. Jeff Bezos, literally my neighbors, first building 3 blocks. As conditions gets worse, he's going to get better. A story today, nothing new, just putting it in perspective. An estimated, I think it was, let me see, 200 anchor stores, right, in malls closed in 2020. 300 more will be gone. The anchor store is gone because a woman put it very succinctly. She said, I'm not going out there anymore. She said, the reason I went to an anchor store like a Macy's, they had everything, right, for me that I wanted. Well, the internet has it now. Why should I go there? So, when that starts,
look at this real quick, because
sure, put it up.
Ben's making a good point because I know it's in Canada, but it's really kind of nails some of the things down. Where they're saying that the conservatives, I'm assuming the conservatives in Canada were a little bit different, I guess, than in the United States, but outsourcing those labs because Canada had a really big problem with the vaccines. And
well,
in Toronto, they have a really big issue right now.
The same thing is true. The country that I'm most interested in right now, in fact, I didn't get a conversation with it because my wife was talking tonight, is Australia, where people who follow the show know that my son and daughter-in-law and 2 grandchildren are spending the second year there. They'll be back at the end of this year, probably. They're having the same thing. They actually were getting all their vaccines not produced in Australia, right? Getting them in. And Italy now, they're large. They were getting them through Italy, and Italy say, no, we're being hit. We're going to keep them here. And I find that interesting. Okay, in terms of defense, let's talk about things that are outdated. You really think tanks are going to win the next war? You really think aircraft carriers are going to win the next war? No, they're not. And because one of the next wars is going to be fought over, with cyber attacks. Another is going to.
We even have a war with what's happening with climate change. We may not even.
Let's put it like that. True. I mean, is that is a tank going to stop
things? A lot of times things work out that way. You always expect something to happen, and it never came because of something else that. We didn't
Well, I think
anticipate.
but the point is true whether you're talking climate change or cybernetics or the big thing again back in the news is was this manufactured in a lab in Wuhan, or was it? And we go back and forth. I will say this with almost as absolute certainty as I can: if that was manufactured in a lab and it did leak out of the lab, it was not being manufactured as a bioweapon because it's not fatal enough to be a bioweapon.
Yeah,
It could have been, I think this is a possibility. They're working in that lab on trying to come up with SARS eradication. And, it could have been something that got out from that end, but this is not, but that's real, all that stuff. But you know why? My theory, or one of my theories, why we don't change that. Do you know how much work is provided and how much money is made to build an aircraft carrier?
it's unbelievable, and we have like
And that's jobs,
11 to
and
13. I don't know
so
how many
so
we have.
right, so you close that down, right? Okay, well, what's going to happen then? Um, and the fact is, those workers are not going to be able to place right into cybersecurity, right? And you were saying before, which is a very apt point, Brian, about the difference of intelligence, or I could do John Gardner's differential intelligences, many multiple intelligences, and we only test one or two. But the idea of it is basically where we're headed is training, whether academic or something, is going to be more crucial than it ever was, right? Car mechanics now have to be trained in computerization because cars are computerized, right? The idea of just, kind of get yourself dirty, building your, Model A Ford and then going along is not going to cut it anymore. So what are you going to do if what kind of some of our people said tonight, and I agree with, is the loss of jobs is creating this fear, or is one of the contributors to this fear, and more jobs are lost. What's going to happen then? And look, I mean, maybe okay. Let's look at it this way, or the way I look at it. All right. Again, I'll use an example because I try to use personal examples. Owens, we said the area where you live now, Brian and I live, huge glass manufacturing. The Owens, Illinois plant in Bridgeton, which you drive by now, it's been torn down, but it's empty, but was the largest in the world at one point. 4 shifts, one off, 3 on every day of the week, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. My brother-in-law began his career there. He was corporate Owens, and he ended his career overseeing a plant in Colombia. That plant employed, I think it was 15% of the workers, number of workers, right? Produced 50% more product with 85% less imperfections, right? And this is going to continue. Well, if you can do that, and there you could do it because, again, there's not the safety regulations in Colombia. They don't pay it. All you have to worry about is paying off the Magdalene cartel. That's a cost. And they really did. My brother-in-law would get, a couple bodyguard escorts every time he went in because, kidnapping is a very profitable industry. So I'm not trying to make it, it's all. But if you're just concerned with bottom line profits, and we haven't even talked tonight about what are you going to do about the border? I mean, I don't even know if there is an answer for that. I mean, I think you can be more humane than Trump was. So let's get back on this idea of guns for a moment. Brian, okay, when we get off the air tonight, Joe Biden is so impressed with your thinking. And he says, Brian, I got to start somewhere. I want to reduce this gun thing. Tell me what you would do first. What would you do first? Because I think sometimes people come in with these massive plans, and there's still got to be a first. There's something you have to do first.
Well, I think the background checks are the only thing right now you can probably try to get, because it's so reasonable. Most people want it, but are you going to get it? I mean, it's just like
Well,
at the Sandy
then
Hook, you would have figured you would have gotten it.
I said that earlier. Now, so does that mean then first step is to eliminate the filibuster so that you can get a vote?
if you can do it, do it. I mean,
Well, that's the next point.
because
How are
they're
you
not.
going to get? How are you going to get?
Ordinarily, I would say no, but I mean, we know what the other side is now. They're
How are you going to?
Nazis.
How are you going to get? And I'm not. I'm just saying. How are you going to get Mansion and your other secret love cinema
Well,
to
that's
go
something Joe
along?
Biden's gonna have to figure out. He might have
Well,
to
that's what I'm
offer
saying. I
his
mean, I
help.
don't know. Yeah, I mean, what do you do? Then you're
Yeah.
back to: would you rather have Mansion there voting
Unless you get,
Democratic?
I tell you what you do. Then you get the photos on Mansion somewhere. Somebody's got to play hardball.
Oh, let's go with that. Okay. Yeah.
Lincoln probably would have done it if you know.
Well, yeah. Again, different time. Think about it. Alexander Hamilton, because he had an affair. There are political experts who believe that's the only reason they kept him from being president, right? Because there was some shame in that. Is there today? So what photos? What photos could you have on Joe Manchin? I mean, I don't know. What would shock people anymore? Certainly Trump did. I mean, Trump, 23, 27 women.
Well, the
Doesn't
question
matter.
is, would it's not so much would it would shock people if it would shock Joe Manchin. That's the real
Well,
question.
you and I have had that discussion, and you and I differ on
Yeah,
that.
some people don't like
Uh,
embarrassment.
I think there are so many in that level that really don't feel shame.
And that's when you have then you know what then Dave, it's kind of like what you've talked about before. I mean, this not this particular show, but you've said in other shows. You know, if you're gonna have like a country like that where you know that you're gonna have people like that, and it's gonna be that type of situation, you might as well just divide the country up and say forget it. I mean,
Well, I've always, I mean, not always said that, and it's and I mentioned,
and that may be it. Just like
yeah, but
what
see,
we
Brian,
decided to do. What we
even
decided to do.
even that's tough because how do you divide the country? Yeah, I mean, physically do it. Do you draw a line down the middle and say, okay, that way both of you get coasts? And so, no,
I
no,
don't
I want
know,
more
Dave.
mountains.
All I'm saying is,
I know. I'm
you
not saying
you
it's
can't
wrong.
continue this way.
I agree, but I kind of would like to have an idea of the plan. So one of my plans, I mean, not a plan, but an idea is I don't see us uniting. I just don't. I don't see us going to a civil war that would result in one side being victorious. Okay. So short of that, if you
Well, you
can't
know what? That's why
divide, and I'm saying don't give up. I'm not saying that because you should give up. Yeah, no, I'm saying what you've got to come up with something, and the best thing I can come up with, but again, I don't know how to do it, is just negating the crazy Republicans from having enough power to make a difference when they're out of step with 3/4 of the country. And there we are.
yeah, it's
And there we are. So this was a depressing evening.
well, you know what?
See our,
It almost had to be. I mean, this week, my wife and I have been going back to watch. I don't know if Dave, if you ever watched 6 Feet Under, but it was
yeah,
such
I
a
saw what you were
realistic.
watching. I
It
have
was.
not. I
Such
know
a
it's a great
realistic. It
show.
was a
Right,
realistic program, and
right.
you know, it dealt with death, and it dealt with life being difficult, and the all the things that can happen socially with people, and the psychological issues of life, and it was always realistic that like the father figure actually dies, I think, in the first episode, but he's throughout the episode as a ghost,
Right.
not a ghost, but something
Yeah,
that goes in
spirit.
somebody's mind.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And the whole theme with the father throughout the rest of the series was that he was happier being dead. He kept saying, "This is great being dead because I don't have to deal with life as it is." And I think it's just that idea that we kind of sometimes overestimate how good life is, especially if you realize what's around you, and you have to constantly think. And this is the same thing with politics. Like, you keep saying, well, what do we do? Well, it may be, Dave, that we're just like the Russians. You have to fight the good fight, but you're just stuck.
Well, and I mean, I've always said, and I believe this. It's nice to win, but it's more important that you do fight. There's no guarantees of winning.
Yes,
The only guarantee in life is you're going to die. And I hope that doesn't come from
that's
me
it.
or anyone I know real quickly. But I had three, again, it's not a personal show, but three people, boom, 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 3 days this week. So people live, and death is the last part of life. It really is. I mean, they're not. You can't live and not die. We haven't found that yet, and I don't know that we ever will. So in the beginning, I used to use this. You and I would talk about a lot. I'm kind of refining that. I used to say grace under pressure. Maybe it was the way. Right now, it's fighting the good fight, but it's going to take a lot of ideas how to win that fight. And I don't have. I mean, I have some. Um, I would be willing if it weren't so far away now. Back to your sign. I mean, I would hope maybe I can inspire a few people to go sit on that farmer's until he gets arrested. Say, please take that sign down. You start nice. Just go out and say, would you please take that down? Start there. I don't know. One. Yeah.
A friend of mine.
Life is a sexually transmitted disease, fatal in every case. Can't argue with that.
Exactly what it is.
Or maybe we can always go with my favorite humanist, Kurt Vonnegut. And so it goes. And
well,
so
maybe
it goes.
it's that last stage of the Kubler-Ross thing.
No, I you know what? No, I'm sorry. And maybe I am Pollyannish in this, but I really believe, Brian, that there were two friends like you and I sitting on a hill in Athens, bemoaning the fact that Socrates drank the hemlock, saying, there's just no, we don't know when that runs out. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that. I mean, we continue the fight until, we die, and then we hope others. Okay, we'll close. I'll close with this. Okay, you started the show tonight with some really interesting footage, and I'm very appreciative you showed it. And you're talking about, we kind of got into that thing, we live forever, but that's not the only way we live forever. What we do while we're here will live forever too. What I mean is, if you can make some changes, maybe the changes won't live forever because I said things change, but we can try to make them better. And that, I think, is what everybody who feels that things are wrong need to do. You've said yourself, Brian, this is not a time to fence sit. And it really isn't. I can't control which side of the fence you're going to be on, but I really don't think that this is a time to sit on that fence for any of us. And some of us can speak out, and some of us can protest, and some of us, have law degrees and can fight it. Some of us can go and help. There's a great organization here working with immigrants. I mean, whatever your cause is, just go out and do it. That's my remark.
Thank you, Dave.
Just do it. Not like Nike says, but to make change.
Right. Well, folks, it's I hope everything's working here. I'm having a little bit of an issue here.
Yeah, Brian, I'm sorry. Just one thing I always have to come back on. You are wearing a pants tonight, right? You're not. Sometimes you do the show without pants. Are you wearing them tonight?
You'll never know. Know. All right, listen. I'm gonna sign everybody off, but before we do, I just want to make a quick comment. We're kind of where we started off. I was showing some videos from some trips when I was little, and like discussing the show 6 Feet Under, and like discussing these difficult things. These type of videos or these kind of photographs that you see in your own family. I mean, forget about mine, but think about yours. And I'm not a teacher. I mean, I am actually a teacher, but not about this stuff. But the thing that I've kind of learned myself the last few weeks is that you really do have to come to grips with your past, and sometimes it's difficult because as you get older, you start seeing the good things people did and the bad things they did, mistakes they made, and I think when I see these videos of myself, even when I'm 7 or 8 years old, like you saw there in the beginning, I mean, I have a sympathy for myself, and I have sympathy for my parents because, I mean, they made mistakes. I didn't see the world as it really was back then, and I look back at it now and I say, God, what human beings have to go through. You're going through the present, which is difficult, and then you have to look at the past and say, how did this thing really work? Did I really see it in the right way? And then you realize that you really didn't. Just like that photograph when I was talking with Dave, where I looked at it for 50 years and I never saw the background in it, and it was right there, but I just never saw it. And it's difficult because we're dealing with human beings, even if they're your parents. And I had good parents, but they made mistakes too. And just looking back, you know, you were all like me, and you live with these things. And the hardest part, I think, is that when you get older, the past becomes bigger, and at some point, it's all you'll really have, these memories. And I'm just trying to think, how do you get rid of that trap door of the past, because it's not all of it's good. And just like our government right now, I mean, I say our political situation right now, which is really bad. Um, what do you do? I mean, it's just too much, I'm not going to take myself out. I told you I'm not a depressed person. I just don't see things in a very good light. And um, I don't know what to say. It's just because I thanks, Veg. It's just it's the idea is that again, it goes back to 6 feet under, but you and I can relate. I don't care who you are out there. Is that you build a lifetime trying to figure things out, and to get better. I mean, that it seems to be like the thing that we all share. And then you hit this, and you say, "Oh, I was just getting better at this. I was just getting better." And it relates back to a musical thing. And Dave, I don't know if I've talked to you about this, but it was like Debussy, Claude Debussy. He died early in his life, and I think the last thing he said, he has so much to do. All that beautiful music he wrote. He had other things, in store, but it was never to be. And again, this is very depressing. I mean, it's extremely depressing. And Dave was mentioning Grace Under Pressure, and he's kind of doing a little bit of a redo on that, I guess. But I've got no answers for you, folks. I don't know how you live with some of these things, because I can't figure it out myself. It's just like a backpack of ugh, and you say, this was something that we deserved a better deal in life. And I certainly can't complain, because other people have had it a lot worse than I have. But I feel for them too. And like I say, I think we're all kind of like the same, in a certain sense, that you really try to make it work, and your reward is you get sicker and sicker. And there's a price. They say that the price of love is is mourning, sadness. And yeah, we pay a pretty big price. So I don't know what else to tell you, folks. Evil Yoda, yeah. Dave, I might want to bring you back here. I don't know if you're still there.
Sure, I'm still here.
Because we're ready to end the show, and like all of a sudden some ideas.
Yeah, you're always the ones that we got to end the show.
I want to end the show.
Now you want to run?
I really want to end the
well,
show,
we're not.
but I
I'm
can't,
the one that always says it ends
because
when it ends.
all of a sudden I get an idea, but
yeah, well, I agree.
Because Evil Yoda brought up this. Let's put this up here. With capitalism, because I'm not a capitalist, Evil Yoda. Okay. We had was it Johnny Bynes was the guy he's a socialist on our site, Facebook, big time socialist as far as I can tell. Had a brief discussion with him behind the scenes. I don't like to call myself one thing or another. I just know that like you've found problems with each system. You've seen failures with it. I would certainly prefer socialism to outright capitalism. But if people would be decent and play a fair game, I don't think it would really matter. It really wouldn't matter.
Well, okay, I'm going to jump in there, Brian. You just said it. Here's I take it what you're saying a little differently. Human beings are flawed, right? But if you get together, you might be able to overcome that if you listen to others, right? What I'm saying is, maybe they have they can correct your flaws, et cetera, et cetera. What I find wrong with capitalism is this. Uh, in capitalism, to win, it's all about the dollars. That's really what it is. I mean, bottom line, that's what it is. Okay. It really is. It's not about the good you can do and all that. So, but because we're all flawed, I don't know if any other system, I don't know if any system is good. But I do think this any system that puts the individual ahead of the common good, the collective good, or society cannot be successful in the long run because there'll be more winners, a smaller group of winners, and there'll be a large group of losers. And that's kind of where we find ourselves right now in capitalism. And I'm again, I'm more incremental. I don't think you become socialist overnight as much as some of us or some might want it to be. But you can certainly, you can certainly tax more than we do. You can certainly eliminate loopholes. You know, I was challenging you tonight, not you, but on the gun thing. Look, it's very simple. You can't do nothing. All right. We have problems with our economic system. We have problems with systemic racism. We have problems with guns out of control. We have problems with evangelic. I mean, so you can't not do nothing. No, that's a wait a minute. Can't not do anything.
In Russian, that works. Can't do nothing in Russian works. The double negative works.
No, look, that's again. I'm so tired. You weren't doing that. No, I mean you weren't doing it. But how many times have you heard that? Well, if you don't like America, go over there. No, I want to make America two things. It's where I live. I want to make it as good as it can be, not make it great again, because as I said, it's never been great. And the other thing is, why would I go over there? I'm not saying over there is better. I'm saying what we have as a foundation is pretty damn good. But again, with all the foresight our founding fathers have, for one thing, there were no founding mothers, right? For one thing, there were no founding mothers. Do you realize how smart Abigail Adams was in her writings? I mean, if you go back and read that, I would have taken her over John any day of the week, right? But women, second-class citizens. I mean, just think of all the intellectual and all the things that African Americans, if they had been taught to read, could have brought, right? I mean, the list just goes on and on.
We already said that we could probabbe had computers by the 1700s if we didn't have to deal with the Dark Ages. This is right. What we got robbed.
And again, I'm at a point in my life, where I think I don't believe in any organized religion. I just don't, because it seems to be every time that we organize in anything, whether it's a political party, first of all, you kind of lose that individuality. I want that individuality to be able to speak on my own. Hopefully,
everything religion. I mean, you can go. First of all, the first four commandments. Again, we're going through this stuff again and again. The first four commandments are just kissing the ring of this God, and then they try to put limits on everything you do, everything you speak. They don't want you to have sex. I mean, you think it's just. They don't want you to have a good time. Like you have the one thing that you can have is like, if we could all have an orgasm every minute of the day, it'd be like the greatest thing. But you can't. They don't want you to have anything. They don't want you to have.
When you say they, who does that sound like today?
They
pretty much sounds like the Republican today.
Party, right? They don't. Yeah. They know. Like here's a really good thing here, and you're trying to take it away from me.
Or here's the thing that would benefit all of us, like wearing a mask. And Gary, I'm not going to disagree with you. I don't think, if you're saying the human condition, but again, you have to somehow try to be better in the time in which you exist, right? I mean, for example, macho killing power was really needed when it was you and the saber-toothed tiger, right? I mean, you couldn't get there, right, without it. But now it's really counterproductive to anything. Yeah, every sperm is sacred. Okay. Next, we can do that. Let's grab. Okay, next show, let's look at how Monty Python would run them. No, but you joke about Monty Python, but I mean, look at those individuals collectively, brilliant, right? I mean, because they kind of fell into what they want to do, and they didn't speak law. There was great people. You just don't see lockstep. You just don't see lockstep ideas. And I guess if in the middle of everything, I like that one, Osama, because I wonder where my socks are. Now you tell me. But how the hell am I going to get there? Everybody says I'm going to hell. And I said, well, actually, if all the people that I've been told are going there, that's probably a better place. I mean,
I'd say the other guy is the better guy you want. I mean, if you really think about it.
Yeah, more fun now. But I mean, just the idea.
Because he kind of like knew what was wrong with human beings and you had more fun.
No,
yeah, I mean,
well, even that, let's really attack the Bible tonight. What was in the Bible, what was Satan's sin? He challenged God.
Yeah, well, right? I would too. So we're on the same.
Well, no, what I'm saying is, but I mean, isn't that interesting? So the point is, okay, here's what I'm going to come back with.
He challenged a control freak.
Here's what I'm going to come back with. The trick of life is maintaining your individuality, but subjugating it when necessarily to the collective good. And that's where capitalism fails. That's where religion fails. That's where Donald Trump fails. I was not arguing, but discussing someone today who is not a Joe Biden fan, which is fine. And I said, you want to know something, though? I believe two things. I believe that if you're going to look at, I don't know if you've ever done that, Brian. I joke about the yin yang page where I'm on this page and this would be the yang to me on that, or vice versa. Mm-hmm. And Joe Biden is certainly the yang to Trump's yang, or vice versa. And the other thing is, Joe Biden is the only person I know that I think could have beaten Trump and did. I mean, maybe somebody else could argue Bernie, maybe, you could argue, but I mean,
well, that was my discussion. Sorry, Dave, missed you up
there,
but that was my discussion with Johnny Bynes, and I told Johnny he should come on if he wants to.
Oh,
I said I'm not sure that Bernie would have won, and it looks like Biden's going to the left. Now, I know somebody made a comment that with the 2% raise in the military, that always happens, and it's not necessarily the president. But in terms of where Biden's going, he's going, at least what he's done so far is like anything Bernie would have done.
Well, see, and I just took it as literally ABT, anybody but Trump, with the proviso.
Oh, absolutely, Trump, you're right.
Well, Trump would have been the Republican nominee. Now, will he be the nominee in 2024? I'm going to go on record tonight, so we won't have to wait too long. That's what 3 years, 3 3/4 years into the future. He will not be, because he will have lost that through criminal charges. That's my belief. I don't know if ever served jail time. I don't know about that. But the idea of it is what is equally scary, and maybe more so, is it will be Trump. It will be a Trump-like person who will get the GOP nomination. And we know how bad Trump was.
It will be like
nobody could be worse. Oh yeah, they can. I'm not one of those people, right?
As we are more effective, it seems they become worse.
Well,
they get angry and they get even worse.
Brian, I just thought of this. Isn't it interesting? They, and let's be specific, I'm talking about conservatives. Now when we're fighting back, there is justification. We are after them. We do want to get rid of them. We don't want anything to, we don't want to.
It's a question here Mandy has, would Bernie bomb Syria?
Mandy, no. Okay. But again, let me be clear of my thinking. It's only my thinking. I'm not trying to change anybody else's mind. In my way of thinking, Trump would have taken us down. Okay. We had to get rid of Trump. We did. Now we need to find who Joe Biden is merely a caretaker. Okay. Whether by age or where he is.
Do you think that'd be true too there? I mean, I don't know that he would have gotten $15 an
hour. No, I'll tell you why. This is why I think it. Bernie, maybe I'm looking at the fact that, and I always hate this, but I got to clarify it, because I'm not talking as anti-Bernie. I was for Bernie in 2016. I was for Elizabeth Warren in 2020. uh, for the reason that Bernie has always spoken and to me and for me. And I think in 2016, he should have been the nominee. He wasn't. It wasn't stolen from him. It was the way the Democratic system was set up. You know what I mean? In terms of the super delegates, they made some corrections. I don't think Bernie would have won in, in 2020. I'm not even sure Elizabeth Warren would win. But my thinking was she might get more support with women in terms than Bernie would, so maybe a more valuable candidate. Together, they have voices. I mean, they're not silenced. They're certainly like your friend in Russia, you know, who's wasting away in prison. So I think in a certain way they're still doing you know, their job, and I'm not so sure. Now you say, well, wait a minute. If Bernie's right now, the power is not really with the president. Right now, it's with the Senate, right? Because the president can say all he wants to do. Bernie could come up with all these good ideas, but the Senate is where the stumbling block is. You know, you know, that's just where we are. So, and again, I never worry about this. Some people say, "Oh, no, you got to be." That's what the Republicans do. They pick their guy and stay with him. You know, no, we liberals, you know, we'll talk about it, and you know, who was better, Bernie? Who was better? You know, Elizabeth? Who was better, Joe Biden? But the one thing we won't say, Donald Trump was better. And I'm still kicking myself a little bit over, did I give Bill Clinton too much of a pass? You know, as you look back on Clinton, I know I gave John F. Kennedy too much of a pass. You know, he lives in myth and legend. He's the James Dean of presidents, right? Um, did you like Elizabeth Warren better than Hillary? Um, Outside of the fact that I think Hillary was a woman, if you read some of it, yeah, of course she was a woman. I think it's time. That's nothing new. I've said men have fucked it up long enough. Let's go with a woman. Again, kind of. You know, I think they multitask better than we do. I mean, hell, they can have babies and hold down a job and keep us in line. So yes, but I think did I like Elizabeth Warren better than Hillary? Yes. Not personally. I'm just saying. I think Hillary represents something whose time has passed.
Now, this is a good point here, and I know you can answer this, Dave, because Evil makes a good point. He's basically saying that if you were saying that, and I've said this too, that this was a vote against Trump, what would it have mattered? We still believe it would have mattered because it was so close.
And here's why.
It got the black vote out too. I mean, that's another.
No, here's why. Here's why. Yes. I think now, again, this is speculative, but I believe at this point, the next few elections are going to be won in the suburbs. Rural America is red. Urban America is blue, right? For the most part. So anything's going to be done in the suburbs. So you know, why Biden? Okay, this is why I think Biden. I'm not saying it's good. I think this is why. When you are sick, right, you want something to comfort you. And I think Biden was something that people knew and was comforting. I think the other candidates, I don't know that they would have gotten the vote. You know, we've said, Brian, we both said, certainly we should be grateful to every African American who voted.
Right, we would have lost it all. We would have lost everything. Everything down the line would have lost.
Right.
It was so critical that we won that election.
I mean, I don't mind talking this all night, but it's hypothetical in the sense that we can't go back. You were talking about something you're watching. I'm finally getting around. I wanted to watch it for years. I finally broke down and got Hulu for a little bit of time. I'm watching Stephen King's, what is it? You know, 11/23/63. It's the basic storyline is this character, you know, science fiction, gets to go back and try to eliminate Lee Harvey Oswald, right? And would the world be different? But that's predicated on necessarily a false belief that JFK would not gotten us involved in Vietnam. We don't know that, right? So it's the same thing here talking about this. It's a fun game to play, but right now Joe Biden is the president. I don't think we have to rally around everything he says. I think we should dispute what we don't like. That's what he's done. I'm taking someone tonight. Yes, we shouldn't be bombing anybody. All right. I don't think, but
That's a good one with Gary.
what?
I would have put the CBS Sounder on there, but the Seabreeze Road. That's folks. If you don't know Seabreeze Road, they
Well,
don't pave it anymore because
Gary,
of climate change.
no, Kennedy didn't get enough time. Yeah, well, I suppose that's we didn't,
Seabreeze
but
Road.
I can still have my theory of the James Dean. We didn't see his warts. Well, first of all, John Kennedy couldn't get elected today. Okay, but again, different time, right?
Different time.
The most sexual president we ever had. We with enemies out the yin, right? And why do I say that? Gary Hart didn't get elected. And Gary Hart wasn't the half.
I want to clarify that because this was something we discussed a couple of weeks ago, and you and I discussed this privately.
Right.
I want to be careful how you say that because you said he was the most sexual president, Kennedy. I don't necessarily believe that he was more sexual per se than anybody else. I think the way he behaved.
No, Brian. I think maybe
maybe we should separate. Okay, well, maybe we'll both agree that like there's one thing called a drive, and there's also this other thing where it gets into like the sexual obsession things, and that's like the weird stuff.
Well, let's put it like
there's
this:
a difference between drive.
It is pretty much verified from believable sources and by Kennedy's activities that he basically had to have sex every day.
Yeah, but who doesn't? But but you don't do it.
Well, there you are. Okay. Okay. Let's play Jimmy Carter. Jimmy Carter didn't sin, but he thought he did with lust in his heart. I mean, what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to judge Kennedy morally. I'm just saying, I don't know if we knew about Kennedy now, what we know about him now, if he would have run now, if Kennedy would have run now, would we look at him? And I'm not so sure we wouldn't, sort of in a skeevy way, like we look at, your buddy Matt Gaetz. I mean, I don't know. I'm just saying.
What Gaetz.
What's the difference?
Was doing. It's a big difference between what.
Oh, okay. So Kennedy, John Kennedy.
No, not between Kennedy. I'm talking about from the rest of us and Gaetz. I don't know about Kennedy and.
Oh
Gaetz.
No. I was talking about Kennedy. I mean, and I'm not talking from a moral standpoint. I'm just saying, Kennedy. You want to say compromise? I mean, he was. He betted people he probably shouldn't have. In terms of the, secrets and this kind of, I'm just saying that's a different time. Now, today, let's bring it back to Joe Biden. Joe Biden won. How can we help Joe Biden when he's right? And how can we stop Joe Biden when he's wrong? I'm fine with either one. Yes. Carter. The only thing is, though, again, if you study Carter, he really then did. He's the greatest ex-president ever, no question about that. He was a very moral person, but he didn't really understand the inner workings of politics enough. And see, there's the trick, Brian. American political system is so corrupted, which is different than corrupt, right? It's so corrupted. It's so broken. I don't know. You can't fix it from the outside, maybe, right? Because you don't have the power. And once you get in, you're beholden to all. You know what I mean? You could have the greatest ideas, and you become president, and suddenly, if the Senate is against you, right, or the Supreme Court is against you, or this or that, yes. And I think, Veg, you got to remember at that point, though, who beat James Earl Carter? I believe it was Ronald Reagan, correct? And America was moving in that direction, and Carter certainly didn't help himself by being honest. And he used the word malaise. And then again, we've got these American people with the symbols. We were in a bad shape. We were rationing gas, and and look, there's plenty of stories that there were back channels, and they all have that there were back channels. Iran held the hostages. Do you remember what day they released the hostages?
I know it was day 444. I know that.
It was the day
that Reagan became president. That first day.
Now you're going to have a hard time convincing me that there wasn't some timing worked out there.
Where's Gary going with this?
We were headed into free sex 60s, but they rubbed him out before. Um, well, that's interesting. Now, you can also trace a moment. Okay, let me try to do this from a journalistic standpoint. Okay, Kennedy was in essence the last protected president, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a sense. LBJ was, LBJ just wasn't liked by a lot of people. He was very good at manipulating Congress. His Achilles heel was Vietnam. Uh, Being honest never gets you in office. It's very true. If any of you ever get a chance, when things resume, we go places, and you ever get down here, if you get down to Washington, sometime, go. I think it's twice. I can't remember if it's 4 times a year or twice a year. They have a panel at the National Archives, and they bring in ex-senators and ex-congressmen, and that's when they're really honest. You know what I mean? And they one of the ones that just sticks with me was Fred Thompson, the actor who was going to run for president and all that. And he said, "Come on, get real. I never was able to say what I wanted or do what I wanted. I had to live by the soundbite." They're aware of that, and that gets to what was just said. Honesty doesn't get you too much in politics. But then complete dishonesty was one of Trump's downfalls. So, what is it? Moderation in all things, I guess. I love now, and again, this is for another show, but I got to bring this up because I was talking today with my friend I went to the baseball game with, who was a very interesting character in himself. We were talking today about different people we interviewed. Well, he interviewed Mikhail Gorbachev, Jackie Robinson, and Fidel Castro. Kind of an interesting group. And I came back. Well, I interviewed, whatever. But my point is, we were talking about kind of what the show was about tonight. The idea of people and times. Gary said earlier, what the humans don't change. That may well be true, but the times change, right? And it's great to play those speculative games. We don't know what if. The great game of but Kennedy was one of those moments. Whether he was the hinge, they talk about the hinge in history. It was certainly at that moment. I think in November of 1963, it seemed America was going in one direction, and in December, it seemed to go another, right? Because the president was killed. And then in February 7th, 1964, the Beatles were on Ed Sullivan, and we went a different way. And same thing with Carter. I mean, Reagan, they were laying for him, Ronald Reagan. And that's where, if you trace it back, it's Goldwater, Nixon, Reagan, Newt Gingrich, the Bushes as placeholders, and we get Donald Trump. Make sure you share that lecture.
I copied that down actually just now.
Yeah, good, because I do want to watch
by
it.
Richard Wolff. So,
and it'd be hard. Evil again. If we say we're going to end the show hours, we'll probably go through it. No, I think it would be hard to say that the game isn't rigged. I don't know how you could say it. It's not. It is. All right. The question is, how do you, knowing that, what do you do? I mean, and again, I'm not saying anybody says I got to give up. It just makes it more difficult. It's a challenge. It's the idea. Of course, it's rigged. Let's say this. I believe it's rigged. Right? It's rigged by any number of factors. Again, I've said it before. I'll say it again. America is least rigged for me, my type: white, Anglo-Saxon, male, Protestant, upper middle class, college educated. I don't get followed around in grocery stores, right? I don't get shot by police on stops. I can walk in. Someday, Brian, remind me to say it on the show. Actually, I was, in a funny way, recruited sight unseen just talking to for a QAnon hate military group in Colorado simply by my looks, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my point, that's rigged. It's rigged. It's rigged.
Do you
If you're a
think
woman, it's rigged.
this is a comment that's interesting from Mandy? She says women's anti-feminine. You think this is like, remember that Anita Bryant kind of attitude going
Oh,
around?
the orange juice lady. Yeah.
Now, did that? You think that really did bring us like the Reagan thing?
Here's what again, I'm trying to formulate this thought from this book I'm reading, Evil Geniuses. So I'm going to struggle with this. So please bear with me for a moment. The 60s was a period of great change, right? And the 60s needed to happen because basically it was, we're not going to live in little boxes. We're not going to be, we're not going to be conformists.
And when you say 60s, we're really talking like
66,
72.
Really, I would say the 60s are 65 to 74.
Right.
And you could even make an argument, 64 if you want to. I mean, post-Kennedy. The Kennedy era was closer to the 50s. It was starting to change, but that was a youth change.
Right.
But anyway, my point is that I think some really scholars that I respect now are saying, really, the Republicans are the ultimate do your own thing people that we were trying to be. Do you know what I mean? Like they really do do your thing. Step on, it doesn't matter. So, did the 60s pave the way for the social changes we got? Long hair, somewhat more acceptance with free sex. Well, much more. It would be interesting. I mean, I'm not real sure. What really changed that, quite simply, was the invention of the pill. That's really what changed.
But that was kind of, I don't want to get nitpicking, but that kind of was happening in the Bohemian period in like the 1920s,
in 20s, yes.
70s. That kind of was happening.
Yes, in any Bohemian period.
Like the Louise Bryants of the world and the John Reeds.
But what I'm saying is, I think, well, now, Brian, that's interesting you brought that up. Now there's a big question is, what decade are we coming into next? I'm at the loss. The 2020s, right? We're in there. Will that be like the roaring 20s? Because it followed certain things, right? The pandemic. I mean, think of the timing. But again, I don't think it will because the times are different, right? But having said all that, we come back to, think about this. I was thinking about this a lot. You know who warned us about the military-industrial complex?
Eisenhower.
Dwight Eisenhower. I think he was a Republican. Now, you could say that he really wasn't of any party, and he wasn't. He chose the Republican Party. The Democrats would have taken him too. He was sort of the closest thing we have to George Washington in a certain way. George Washington brought the country together. Dwight Eisenhower won World War II. Now, both those are, not true on their face, but they are true the way people looked at him. I like Ike. Okay, who didn't like Ike? Adlai Stevenson didn't like Ike, but that's because he ran against him. That's interesting. Are we so divided? That we will bounce back. Not just the pendulum swinging back and forth, but will the reactions to Biden's 4 years so infuriate people that they will want, Trump? I don't think so. And here's why. My thinking. I completely underestimated the amount of hatred for any Black American. Meaning when Barack Obama became president.
Yes.
If you look at that objectively, certainly he did a pretty good job. Okay. Given
especially
what he
considering
had.
what that happened. Yeah.
And I think again, if I were advising Barack Obama, I would have said, well, the first thing is become the first Black president because we need one. And he won that. The more significant victory to me was his second. But what I underestimated was how much hate was building. Just the fact that he was, just the fact that he was a Black man, and that's what we see, with Donald Trump. Was Hillary a victim to that? Yes, of course she was. That idea, but also Hillary was not. She was a vulnerable candidate. You know what I mean? And again, not going to. I still don't get why the hell she had that private server, and I know it isn't a big deal, but whatever. And the Clintons, not without some Russians, they were felt they were put upon. Well, they were. That's the way politics works. Hillary also had some problems. She stood by her man. She played Tammy Wynette with Bill. I'm not saying that's only between two consenting adults who are married, unless you're the president and the first lady.
Right.
Then it plays out in a whole different realm. And what we're going to do, and I am going to shut up after this one, but what I'm going to be interested in, such a shallow word because it's life and death, but I'm going to use interested. And I'm not sure, Brian, and I won't know. I'll let you know in 2024. 2024. Was Donald Trump the person and the type an anomaly, or is he reflective of a way America is going? And if so, if he is reflective of a way enough Americans are going to build a president, we got to get another anti-Donald Trump out there pretty quickly.
You're absolutely right.
And does that mean we have to run Oprah? I mean, that kind of thing. Anybody want to stay up tonight? Think about it. Dwayne Johnson, AKA The Rock from wrestling. They've been joking about it. There's talk that he really is seriously considering a run for president.
Yeah, well, he's the type of guy probably got hit in the head with The Rock because I don't want him being my president. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, he's popular. Come on. I'm not saying shit. I'm saying, are we there? I mean, are we such a nation now that experience
the whole thing becomes the WWF when you have
experience doesn't count.
Vince McMahon's idea of capitalism.
It's all cult of personality. It doesn't matter.
Apparently.
Well, I mean, are we really? Are the Kardashians? The arbiters. I did something this week. I need to check on. I got Brian. I didn't tell you this. That's just funny. Kind of in light of this, I decided I need to go see some things that I haven't seen for a while. So I subscribed to 5 newsletters from People Magazine. Because honestly, People Magazine is America's magazine. Damn. Would you explain to me America's fascination with the British royals? Didn't we fight to leave them in the dust?
I have no idea,
And the Kardashians, just think if there were no O.J. Simpson, there would have been no Kardashians. The idea, I mean, actors are great. They bring things to, they're just friggin' actors. Again, if this pandemic should have taught us that, the real heroes are the grocery store clerks, the cashiers at pharmacies, the people who clean our streets. But again, in this world, they're not going to get it, which is not that depressing, though. Here's the thing. They do have that, Mandy. They really do. You're absolutely right. And I think there's the reason why is because they don't have the same consideration for facts that a human being should have, right? I mean, they don't care about the facts, right? And where are Obama's achievements now? Americans are owned for the last 40 years at least. Well, let's put it like this. Let's leave with this. Let's all go tonight and figure out. Here's my what I used to say to my kids or my students. Okay, Price is going to get in his pulpit for 27 seconds. Cut him off on the 28th. I'm giving everybody a homework assignment tonight. Think of one thing you can do tomorrow to improve the condition of someone who's not you, and do it. That's my last thought. One thing you can do to improve the condition of someone who's not you, and do it.
Dave, thank you. Thank you, everybody, on this evening.
Can we actually end this damn show now?
We are going to end it, and I'm not going to go any more than saying, like, this is the first show we didn't use Restream, and I know people love it. I personally don't think it was necessary, so we're going to stay with this setup. If we go into
Brian,
Facebook, it'll be shared.
Do you think it would help? I mean, I know, because anytime you make a change, and we make them very abruptly sometimes, those of you who have people that in the group, let them know about this and kind of why we did it. I mean, in other words, it wasn't just, I think sometimes like somebody who's been watching us on Facebook who wasn't watching tonight, right? Where to go? Where'd the show go? So, whether it's Osama or Gary or whomever, I said, or anybody's, Montre watches the show sometimes, anybody who watches it, Sandy, whomever, let people know. It's not so much to draw them to us, but, if they want to seek it out, and we've changed. And again, Brian, if I was joking, I would say it's because you're too damn cheap. But the idea of it is that's prudent in the fact that, you can't, we don't make money off of this, but you shouldn't run at a loss either. Right. You know what I mean? In terms of doing that.
Well, we're going
All right, kids.
Stick with this. And by the way, I probably will probably do a video on my other channel, iGenerals. I haven't done it for a while, but that's the one that has a lot of subscribers. But I haven't done anything on there for months and months and months. But I probably will throw some.
But you will wear underwear when you do that, though, right?
What's that again?
You will wear underwear when you do that particular show.
I never go command. Underwear feels good. You know what I mean?
Thank you for endorsing. I think you're next in line for a Hanes commercial, right?
100% cotton. I'm gonna chill. So, Dave, it's great.
Can't argue with that, Evil. I'm gonna go with Evil on that one.
And thank you, everybody here. We see Gary, Evil, Osama, Laura, Gary, Mandy, everybody. Just if I missed
we had Mandy tonight, but no Stormy.
No Stormy tonight.
Damn.
Okay, I think we're gonna end it on that. He keeps going back to Stormy there. If I can get out of here. All right. Have a great night, everybody.
End the damn show, Brian.
I'm trying. It takes a while for this to go through. It will go.
D'un lion, il y a une jolie fille.